In this video, we're going to be breaking down one insane theory for every Simpsons character. Let's get started with the video. First up, we have Homer Simpson, the coma theory. Homer Simpson, the nuclear safety inspector, family man, and beer enthusiast. Throughout the series, Homer has survived impossible situations, experienced countless near-death incidents, and continued living a life that should have killed him dozens of times over. But according to one haunting fan theory, Homer didn't survive. He's been in a coma since the episode So It's Come to This, a clip show, and everything viewers have watched since that 1993 episode has been the dying dream of a brain-damaged man slowly fading away in a hospital bed. The tragic reality behind the fantasy. The theory proposes that Homer Simpson never actually woke up from the coma induced by Bart's April Fool's prank, when an exploding beer can send him to the hospital with severe injuries. According to this interpretation, every moment of The Simpsons after Homer's hospital stay exists only inside his deteriorating mind, a final fantasy conjured by dying neurons trying to make sense of oblivion. The colorful, absurd world that viewers see on screen is nothing more than an elaborate construction Homer has created to cope with an unbearable reality he cannot face. Everything happens inside Homer's head as he sits in a hospital bed, machines keeping his body alive while his brain slowly shuts down, unable to accept the truth of his situation. The episode that changed everything. The evidence begins with a specific moment in Simpsons history, a moment the show itself frames as significant. In the episode So It's Come to This, a clip show, Bart orchestrates an elaborate April Fool's prank that goes catastrophically wrong. He places an exploding beer can in a six-pack, knowing Homer will grab it without looking. The explosion is massive. Homer sustains severe injuries that land him in Springfield General Hospital in critical condition. Dr. Hibbert informs the family that Homer has fallen into a coma. The family gathers around his bedside, uncertain whether he'll ever wake up. At the end of the episode, Homer's eyes open. He regains consciousness. The family celebrates his recovery, and life returns to normal. What if Homer never actually regained consciousness? What if that moment of waking was the last thing his brain manufactured before beginning its final descent into death? The theory proposes that everything following that episode represents Homer's dying brain, creating an endless fantasy where he survives, where his family is still with him, where life continues. The real Homer remains in that hospital bed, unresponsive, while his consciousness plays out scenario after scenario in an attempt to deny the reality of his approaching death. His brain cannot accept that the prank killed him, that Bart's joke ended his life, that he'll never see his family again. So it creates an alternative where none of that is true, where he woke up and everything was fine. The show's increasing absurdity. The theory gains support from an undeniable shift in the show's reality that occurred immediately after Homer's coma. Early seasons of The Simpsons were grounded in relatability. The Simpson family dealt with realistic problems. Homer struggled at work. Marge managed household stress. The children faced school challenges. The situations were exaggerated for comedy, but remained tethered to recognizable human experience. After 1993, after Homer's coma episode, the show changed fundamentally. The reality became fluid. Homer traveled to space. The family met presidents and celebrities who interacted with them as equals. Characters survived situations that would kill anyone. Homer fell down Springfield Gorge twice. He survived being shot, stabbed, crushed, and beaten. He experienced adventures that exceeded any possibility of reality. This shift wasn't gradual, it was immediate. The show that had been grounded became fantastical. The tone that had been satirical became surreal. The Simpsons went from a show about a working-class family to a show where anything could happen without consequence. According to the theory, this transformation reflects Homer's dying brain losing its grip on reality. In the beginning, his coma fantasy maintained some connection to the real world, to how life actually functioned. As his brain deteriorated, as his neurons fired more randomly, as his consciousness fragmented, the fantasy became less constrained by logic or possibility. The show became more absurd, because Homer's dying mind became more desperate, more chaotic, more willing to abandon any pretense of realism in favor of pure wish fulfillment and escape. The floating timeline phenomenon. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence is the show's infamous floating timeline, where decades pass, but the Simpson family remains frozen in time. The Simpsons premiered in 1989. It's now been over 35 years. In the real world, Bart would be in his 40s. Lisa would be approaching 40. Maggie would be an adult with her own life. Homer and Marge would be elderly or deceased. But in the show, none of them have aged. Bart is still 10 years old. Lisa is still 8. Maggie is still a baby. Homer and Marge remain the same age they were in 1989, perpetually in their 30s, never growing older, never moving forward in time. This impossibility makes perfect sense through the lens of the coma theory. Time doesn't move forward because Homer's brain is dying. A dying brain cannot process time linearly. It cannot imagine futures that don't exist. Homer's consciousness is trapped in an eternal present, looping through familiar scenarios, unable to conceive of aging or change because he himself is not aging or changing in his hospital bed. He's frozen at the moment of his injury, his brain replaying variations of his life as it was when the coma began. The fantasy cannot include aging because that would require acknowledging the passage of time, and acknowledging time means acknowledging that Homer is running out of it. So time stops. The family stays the same. Nothing fundamental ever changes because change means death, and Homer's dying brain is constructing this entire reality specifically to avoid confronting death, the family Homer imagines. The theory transforms how we understand each member of the Simpson family, revealing them not as real people, but as constructs of Homer's fading mind. Marge appears as the idealized patient wife, always forgiving, always understanding, always taking Homer back no matter what he does. This version of Marge reflects Homer's guilt about how he treated her in life, mixed with his desperate wish that she loved him unconditionally despite his failures. The real Marge may have been frustrated with Homer, may have considered leaving him, may have expressed anger at his behavior, but in the fantasy, Marge is perfect. She accepts everything. She forgives everything. She represents what Homer needed her to be, not what she actually was. Bart appears as the mischievous but ultimately loving son. He pranks Homer, disrespects him, rebels against him. But in moments of crisis, Bart always comes through. He always cares. He always loves his father beneath the antagonism. This Bart is Homer's wishful thinking about their real relationship. The prank that put Homer in the coma came from his son. Homer's dying brain cannot accept that Bart's actions killed him, so it creates a fantasy where Bart's pranks are harmless, where their relationship is fundamentally loving despite the conflict, where the explosion was just another joke that Homer survived. Lisa exists as the genius daughter who still needs her father, who still seeks his approval despite being smarter than him. Homer imagines Lisa as brilliant and accomplished, but also as someone who values him, who cares what he thinks, who hasn't outgrown needing him. This reflects Homer's fear of inadequacy, his worry that Lisa's intelligence means she doesn't need him, combined with his desperate hope that even his smartest child still loves her foolish father. Maggie remains an eternal baby, frozen in time, never growing up, never leaving, always present. She represents Homer's desire to keep his children young, to prevent them from aging and moving away from him. In his dying fantasy, Maggie will never grow up because Homer will never have to face her becoming independent and no longer needing him. The Treehouse of Horror connection. The Treehouse of Horror episodes take on disturbing new significance when viewed as Homer's subconscious, acknowledging the truth of his situation. Every year, The Simpsons produces a Halloween special where reality breaks down completely. Characters die and return. Supernatural forces appear. The family experiences horror scenarios that explicitly don't count as canon. These episodes are framed as separate from the show's normal continuity, as non-real even within the context of the show itself. But according to the coma theory, these episodes represent something crucial. They're moments when Homer's dying brain acknowledges what's actually happening, when the truth breaks through the fantasy before being pushed back down. In Treehouse of Horror episodes, death is everywhere. Characters are killed in graphic ways. The Simpson family faces existential threats. Homer himself often dies or experiences horror that exceeds the normal show's boundaries. These episodes frequently explore themes of death, consciousness, and the nature of reality itself. They present scenarios where the world isn't what it seems, where terrible truths lurk beneath surface appearances. According to the theory, these aren't just Halloween fun. They're Homer's subconscious trying to communicate the reality his conscious mind refuses to accept. The horror episodes are when the dying brain briefly acknowledges that it's dying, that the normal episodes are fantasy, that the truth is terrible. The show within a show structure of many Treehouse episodes mirrors the coma within reality structure the theory proposes. The Simpson family sits together and tells stories, framing the horror as fiction they're creating. This structure perfectly represents how Homer's mind works under the coma theory. His consciousness creates the normal episodes as fantasy, while his subconscious tries to break through with truth during the Treehouse episodes, which are then dismissed as non-canon, as not real, allowing Homer's fantasy to continue undisturbed. The show tells the audience that Treehouse episodes don't count, the same way Homer's dying brain tells itself that the acknowledgement of death doesn't count, that only the happy fantasy matters. Springfield as mental construct. Springfield itself provides evidence for Homer's coma, existing as a contradictory, impossible place that could only exist inside someone's confused mind. The town's geography changes constantly. Locations appear and disappear based on episode needs. The same businesses occupy different positions in different episodes. The distance between locations varies wildly. Springfield sits in a state that's never definitively identified, incorporating characteristics of multiple regions simultaneously. It's coastal and landlocked. It's near mountains and near deserts. It contains every type of American geography despite being a single town. This impossibility makes perfect sense if Springfield exists only in Homer's mind, assembled from fragments of places he's been, limited by his knowledge and confused by his deteriorating consciousness. Everything in Springfield revolves around Homer's life. Every business exists primarily to serve plots involving the Simpson family. Every resident has some connection to Homer or his family. The entire town seems to exist as background for Homer's story, rather than as an independent place with its own reality. Moe's Tavern exists so Homer has somewhere to drink. The nuclear power plant exists as Homer's workplace. The Quick E-Mart exists so Homer can buy things. The elementary school exists for Bart and Lisa. Nothing in Springfield seems to have purpose beyond serving the needs of Homer's narrative. This narcissistic geography makes sense if Springfield is Homer's mental construction. He's creating only what he needs for his fantasy, filling in details that matter to his story and leaving everything else vague or contradictory, because his dying brain doesn't have the capacity to maintain consistency in details that don't directly involve him. Why the theory resonates. The coma theory has persisted for decades because it elegantly explains every contradiction, every impossible moment, every surreal adventure the Simpson family experiences. It transforms comedy into tragedy. Every laugh becomes evidence of a dying man's desperate attempt to deny his approaching death. Every absurd situation becomes a symptom of neurological collapse. Every moment of family happiness becomes more poignant and heartbreaking when understood as fantasy, created by someone who has lost his real family and can only imagine being with them again. The theory recontextualizes the entire series. What appears as lighthearted entertainment becomes a meditation on death, denial, and the human mind's desperate need to continue existing even when the body has given up. Homer's adventures aren't really adventures, they're death dreams. His relationship with his family isn't a relationship, it's a memory. His life isn't a life. It's the last firing of neurons in a brain that refuses to accept its own ending. The tragedy at the heart of this theory is that Homer never wakes. The real Homer lies in a hospital bed, unresponsive, while his family makes impossible decisions about his care. Marge sits beside him, wondering if her husband will ever return. Bart lives with guilt about the prank that destroyed his father. Lisa loses the parent who, despite everything, loved her. Maggie will never know her father, never have memories of him outside early infancy. The Simpson family suffers real grief and loss while Homer's brain plays out endless fantasy scenarios where everything is fine, where they're all together, where the prank didn't end everything. The theory demonstrates how audiences engage with media in unexpected ways, finding tragedy beneath comedy, seeing a man's dying dream where others see simple entertainment. Whether viewers accept this interpretation or reject it entirely, the theory has become an inseparable part of The Simpsons' cultural legacy, a dark shadow lurking beneath the show's bright yellow surface. It reminds us that behind every laugh might be someone's last desperate attempt to keep living, that happiness might be delusion, and that the family we see together might exist only in the mind of someone who can never be with them again. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Marge Simpson, the prison theory. Marge Simpson trapped in her own cell. Marge Simpson appears to have everything she ever wanted: a husband, 3 children, a house in suburban Springfield, and a life that, despite its chaos, revolves around family. But according to a disturbing fan theory, Marge isn't living this life at all. She's incarcerated in a women's prison, and the entire Simpson family exists only in her mind as an elaborate fantasy she's constructed to cope with her imprisonment. Every sacrifice she makes, every moment she stands by Homer despite his failures, every day she maintains her perfect facade is Marge's mind creating the family she never had, constructing an ideal life from the confines of a prison cell. Marge's criminal background. The evidence for Marge's incarceration begins with the show's own revelations about her darker past, a past that suggests criminal potential. Marge comes from a family with criminal connections. Her father, Clancy Bouvier, was involved in questionable activities. Throughout the series, the show has revealed that Marge has her own history of criminal behavior. She shoplifted as a young woman. She developed a gambling addiction that consumed her. In the episode Marge in Chains, she's arrested for shoplifting and faces trial, giving viewers a glimpse of how Marge would exist within the criminal justice system. Her composed exterior occasionally cracks to reveal repressed rage capable of explosive violence. She's attacked people who pushed her too far. She's stolen. She's lied to protect herself and her family. These aren't isolated incidents. They're a pattern. Throughout the series, Marge has demonstrated that beneath her perfect housewife exterior exists someone capable of criminal acts, someone who has repeatedly broken laws and moral codes. The show presents these moments as comedy or as brief aberrations from Marge's true nature. But what if they're not aberrations? What if they're glimpses of who Marge actually is, the criminal beneath the fantasy of domesticity? The theory proposes that Marge's criminal history finally caught up with her. She went too far. She committed an act that resulted in serious prison time. Unable to face the reality of incarceration, her mind retreated into fantasy, creating an elaborate delusion where she's not in prison, but living the perfect domestic life she always imagined. The impossible perfection. The most compelling evidence lies in Marge's impossibly perfect behavior, her unwavering devotion to a man who treats her terribly, her endless patience with children who never listen, her maintenance of a spotless home despite constant chaos. Marge forgives Homer for everything. He strangles their son, he gambles away their money, he repeatedly lies to her, he humiliates her publicly, he forgets their anniversary, her birthday, and important events. He shows more affection for beer than for his wife. He's selfish, lazy, and often cruel. A real woman would leave. A real woman would demand better. A real woman would have limits to her forgiveness. But Marge never leaves. She never gives up. She accepts Homer's apologies no matter how many times he disappoints her. She forgives behavior that no actual person would tolerate. This perfection suggests fantasy, not reality. Marge represents an idealized 1950s housewife, the fantasy of domestic perfection that has nothing to do with how real women behave or how real relationships function. She maintains a clean house despite her family's constant destruction of it. She cooks elaborate meals that are rarely appreciated. She sacrifices her own dreams and ambitions to serve her family's needs. She sublimates her identity into the role of wife and mother so completely that she barely exists as an individual. This isn't how real people live. This is how someone in prison might imagine the perfect domestic life, how someone who has never had a family might fantasize about what family means. The theory proposes that Marge is in prison imagining the ideal life she never had. She never married. She never had children. She never owned a home. She committed crimes that resulted in incarceration, and now she sits in a cell constructing an elaborate fantasy where she's everything she isn't, where she has everything she doesn't, where she lives a life that's the opposite of her actual existence. The perfection of her devotion, the impossibility of her patience, the unrealistic nature of her endless forgiveness all point to fantasy rather than reality. Real women don't behave this way. Imaginary women created by desperate prisoners might. The blue hair as symbol. Marge's iconic blue beehive hairdo takes on new meaning when viewed through the lens of imprisonment. Her hair is unnaturally tall, impossibly structured, and bright blue. This isn't realistic hair. It's symbolic hair, representing something beyond normal appearance. Throughout the series, episodes have revealed what Marge hides in her hair. She stores things there. She uses it as storage space. The hair becomes a container for secrets, for hidden aspects of herself. In the context of the prison theory, Marge's hair represents her desire to stand out, to be seen, to be more than just another inmate in a system that strips away identity. Prisoners often have strict regulations about appearance, about hair length and style. Marge's elaborate hair might be her mental rebellion against the uniformity prison imposes, her fantasy of having control over her appearance when in reality she has none. The color blue itself carries significance. Blue is associated with sadness, with melancholy, with depression. Marge's hair being blue might represent her actual emotional state, the sadness and despair she's feeling in prison, manifesting in her fantasy as a physical characteristic. The hair never changes. Marge has had the same hairstyle for the entire series, never altering it, never trying something different. This frozen identity mirrors how prison freezes people, how inmates remain stuck at the point of their incarceration, unable to grow or evolve because the system doesn't allow for growth. Marge's hair is her only distinctive feature, the only thing that makes her visually unique. In a prison environment where individuality is suppressed, the mind would cling to any form of distinction, any way of being different from everyone else. Marge's hair becomes that distinction in her fantasy, the visual representation of a woman desperate to be seen, to stand out, to be more than just another prisoner in the system, the family that never changes. The theory explains why the Simpson family never truly grows or changes, why they remain locked in the same patterns decade after decade. Bart, Lisa, and Maggie never age. The children remain children forever in Marge's fantasy because she can't imagine aging or change. Time in prison is repetitive and unchanging. Days blur together. Weeks become indistinguishable. Years pass without meaningful variation. Life becomes a loop of the same routines, the same environment, the same faces. Marge's fantasy reflects this prison reality. Her imagined family doesn't change because she has no concept of change. She's been in prison so long that her fantasy has calcified, becoming as rigid and repetitive as her actual daily routine behind bars. Homer never improves. He repeatedly makes the same mistakes, learns the same lessons, and returns to the same behaviors. This reflects Marge's realistic expectations. Even in her fantasy, even when creating the ideal husband, she cannot imagine a man who truly changes or grows. Her experience in prison, watching people cycle through the same behaviors, has taught her that people don't fundamentally change. So even in her wish fulfillment fantasy, Homer remains flawed, remains static, remains locked in patterns he cannot break. The same conflicts repeat endlessly. The family faces the same challenges season after season. Lessons learned in one episode are forgotten by the next. This repetition mirrors prison life, where inmates cycle through the same struggles without resolution, where growth is impossible because the environment doesn't support it. Moments of breaking through. Occasionally, the theory suggests, Marge's fantasy cracks, and glimpses of her real situation bleed through into the imagined world she's created. Throughout the series, Marge has episodes where she expresses feeling trapped, where she breaks down completely, where she questions her reality. She's attempted to leave her life, to escape Springfield, to start over somewhere else. These attempts always fail. Something always pulls her back. According to the theory, these moments represent Marge's real consciousness breaking through the fantasy, brief acknowledgments of her actual imprisoned state before she retreats back into the comforting delusion of her perfect family life. In certain episodes, Marge displays unusual despair or desperation that exceeds normal frustration. She has violent outbursts that seem out of character. She expresses thoughts about wanting to escape, about feeling like she's living someone else's life. The show presents these as temporary breakdowns from stress, but they might be something more. They might be Marge's actual self trying to communicate with her delusional self, trying to break through the fantasy and acknowledge the truth. The prison walls become visible for a moment before Marge's mind desperately reconstructs them into the walls of her Springfield home. The prison-Springfield connection. Springfield's structure and society bear remarkable similarities to a prison system, suggesting Marge's subconscious is incorporating her real environment into her fantasy. Springfield has clear boundaries that are rarely crossed. Characters almost never leave town, and when they do, they return quickly. The town is self-contained, isolated, cut off from the broader world in ways that don't make sense for a normal city. This mirrors prison geography. Prisons are enclosed spaces with strict boundaries. Inmates cannot leave. The outside world exists but is inaccessible. Springfield functions the same way in Marge's fantasy, her mind unable to imagine spaces beyond the boundaries it experiences daily. The town has limited locations that repeat constantly. The Simpson family visits the same places over and over. They go to Moe's Tavern, the Quickie Mart, the elementary school, and very few other locations. This limited geography mirrors how prisoners experience only certain areas of the facility. Marge can only imagine the few locations her mind has constructed, because those represent the limited spaces she's allowed to occupy in actual prison. Everyone in Springfield seems trapped there. Residents complain about the town, but never leave permanently. They're stuck in Springfield the same way inmates are stuck in prison. The town even has authority figures who control residents' behavior, with Chief Wiggum and the police functioning as guards, maintaining order through threat of punishment. Why this theory persists? The prison theory endures because it reframes Marge from a one-dimensional housewife into a complex woman using fantasy as survival. It adds depth to her character, transforming her patience from virtue into tragedy. Her devotion becomes heartbreaking when understood as imagined rather than real. The theory shows the strength required to create and maintain such an elaborate coping mechanism. Creating an entire world, populating it with people, maintaining their individual personalities and relationships, keeping the fantasy consistent enough to be believable even to yourself requires enormous mental power. Marge's fantasy demonstrates resilience rather than weakness. She's found a way to survive an unbearable reality by constructing something bearable. Whether Marge is literally imprisoned or metaphorically trapped in a life she never wanted, the theory reveals a woman who has found a way to survive, creating beauty and family and love in a world that has given her none of those things. The theory transforms Marge from a simple cartoon housewife into a tragic figure whose greatest act of resilience is imagining a life worth living. Every moment of her perfect behavior, every act of forgiveness, every sacrifice for her family becomes evidence of a mind refusing to accept defeat, refusing to acknowledge the bars surrounding her, choosing delusion over despair, because delusion at least allows her to feel loved, needed, and connected to something beyond the cell she'll never escape. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Bart Simpson, the future self theory. Bart Simpson, the boy who already lived. Bart Simpson, the 10-year-old troublemaker who has remained 10 years old for over 3 decades. Throughout the series, Bart has displayed knowledge, skills, and awareness that seem impossible for a child his age. But according to a mind-bending theory, Bart isn't actually a child at all. He's either an adult from the future who has traveled back in time and become trapped in his childhood body, or he's an elderly Bart creating false memories of a childhood that never happened the way he remembers it. Every prank, every act of rebellion, every moment where Bart displays knowledge beyond his years isn't a child misbehaving. It's an adult trapped in childhood, desperately trying to change his past, or an old man reimagining a youth he's romanticized beyond recognition. Bart's impossible knowledge. The evidence begins with Bart's repeated demonstrations of knowledge and capabilities that no child could possess. He orchestrates complex schemes requiring adult-level planning and foresight. He understands psychological manipulation tactics that would take years to develop. He references historical events and cultural touchstones he shouldn't know about. He displays strategic thinking that exceeds childhood capacity. His pranks aren't childish mischief. They're sophisticated operations that require understanding of technology, timing, psychology, and consequence prediction. A 10-year-old could not successfully execute many of the schemes Bart has accomplished throughout the series. Bart has demonstrated leadership abilities that suggest extensive life experience. He's organized groups of children into effective teams. He's negotiated with adults on equal footing. He's outwitted intelligent adversaries through planning and patience. He's shown understanding of adult concepts like politics, economics, and social systems that children don't typically grasp. His vocabulary occasionally includes words and references that a 10-year-old wouldn't know. When Bart wants to be clever, he displays intelligence that contradicts his usual academic struggles, suggesting the intelligence is there, but usually hidden. Throughout the series, Bart has shown skills that require years of practice. He's an accomplished skateboarding, suggesting thousands of hours of training. He can drive vehicles with competence that exceeds what a child figuring things out would display. He understands how various technologies work despite having no formal education in them. These capabilities make sense if Bart is actually an adult with decades of life experience operating in a child's body, unable to completely suppress his true knowledge and abilities despite trying to maintain the appearance of being 10 years old. The future Bart episodes. The show itself has provided the most explicit evidence for this theory through multiple episodes depicting Bart as an adult. In Lisa's Wedding and other future set episodes, viewers see adult Bart. What's striking about these portrayals is how perfectly adult Bart's personality matches child Bart. His mannerisms are identical. His speech patterns are the same. His relationship dynamics with his family mirror his childhood relationships exactly. Future Bart behaves like current Bart in an adult body, suggesting continuity that goes beyond normal character consistency. These future episodes consistently show Bart as a failure. Adult Bart hasn't accomplished anything significant. He has disappointing jobs or no job at all. His relationships are shallow or dysfunctional. He still lives in Springfield, still orbits his family, still exists in the same limited world he occupied as a child. He expresses regrets about his childhood, about choices he made, about opportunities he wasted. He talks about wishing things had been different, about wanting another chance, about mistakes he cannot undo. According to the theory, these aren't flash-forwards at all. They're memories of who Bart actually is now. The adult consciousness currently inhabiting the 10-year-old body remembers what his life became. Those future episodes are his actual present, the reality he's trying to escape by returning to childhood. When the show depicts future Bart talking about his regrets, it's showing the motivation for why Bart traveled back to his childhood. He couldn't live with how his life turned out. He needed to try again, to change the crucial moments, to become someone different by making different choices when those choices still mattered. Why Bart returned to childhood. If Bart is truly an adult from the future trapped in his child body, the question becomes, why would he do this to himself? Future Bart's life went wrong in fundamental ways. He failed at school, leading to limited opportunities. His relationship with his father remained distant and troubled. His pranks and rebellion as a child created a reputation he could never escape. He became what everyone expected him to become, the underachiever whose potential was wasted, the troublemaker who never grew up, the disappointment who lived in his sister's shadow. While Lisa succeeded at everything, Bart failed. Adult Bart couldn't live with these regrets. He made a choice, perhaps through some form of time travel technology, perhaps through a supernatural bargain, perhaps through a method the show will never explain. He returned to his childhood with full memory of his future intact. He intended to change things, to be a better son, to try harder at school, to make different choices that would lead to a different future. But he's trapped. He's living through his childhood again with adult awareness, but he cannot change the fundamental patterns. The show's eternal present keeps him locked at age 10, reliving the same year over and over, making the same mistakes, unable to break the cycle that leads to the failed future he's desperately trying to avoid. The elderly Bart alternative. The theory has a darker alternative interpretation. Bart isn't living in his actual past, but creating false memories of a childhood that never existed. According to this version, elderly Bart sits alone, forgotten, perhaps in a nursing home or confined to isolation. His life was nothing like what the show depicts. He didn't have the adventures viewers see. His family wasn't the way he remembers them. He's rewriting his past, creating an idealized version of childhood where he was important, clever, and central to every story. Every episode represents elderly Bart's reimagining of events that never happened or happened completely differently. This interpretation explains the increasingly heroic and central role Bart plays in episodes. As memory distorts over time, people tend to make themselves more significant in past events. Elderly Bart is no exception. In his false memories, he's the hero of every adventure. He's the smartest person in every situation. His family's lives revolve around him. This narcissistic rewriting of history is common in elderly people's memories. They don't intentionally lie. Their brains genuinely reconstruct the past to be more flattering, more interesting, more centered on themselves than reality was. Bart's memories have become more elaborate, more exciting, more focused on his importance, because that's how aging memory works. The truth of his childhood was probably mundane, disappointing, and forgettable. The fantasy he's created is adventurous, meaningful, and centered entirely on him. The meta-awareness evidence. Bart frequently demonstrates awareness that he's in a television show, making references and jokes that suggest he understands the artificial nature of his reality. He breaks the fourth wall regularly. He comments on being in a cartoon. He references specific episodes and animation choices. He demonstrates knowledge of narrative structure and audience expectations. This meta-awareness isn't typical for a child character. It suggests someone outside the story looking in, someone who knows the whole thing is a construction rather than a reality. If Bart is an adult from the future, or an elderly man reimagining his past, this meta-awareness makes perfect sense. He knows he's not in a real childhood because he's lived through it already. He's aware of the artifice because he's the one creating it, either through time travel manipulation or through memory reconstruction. When Bart jokes about being in a TV show, he's acknowledging the truth. This isn't his real life. It's a replay, a reconstruction, a fantasy he's living through with full awareness that it's not actually happening. The other characters exist in the moment, believing their reality is real. Bart knows better. He's seen how it ends. He knows the whole thing is artificial. His fourth wall breaks are moments of honesty, admissions that he's aware this entire reality is a construction he shouldn't be able to see through, but cannot help seeing through because he exists outside it while simultaneously trapped inside it. The relationship with Lisa. Bart's complex relationship with Lisa takes on new meaning when viewed as an adult brother who knows how their stories turn out. Throughout the series, Bart displays a combination of rivalry and protection toward Lisa. He torments her constantly, but defends her from others. He sabotages her efforts, but also enables her success. He knows she's smarter than him, but resents her for it. This complicated dynamic makes perfect sense if Bart is an adult who knows Lisa's future. He knows she'll escape Springfield. He knows she'll succeed in ways he never did. He knows she'll become everything he couldn't be. His treatment of Lisa reflects adult envy disguised as sibling rivalry. He sabotages her not out of childish meanness, but out of adult knowledge that she doesn't need his sabotage. She'll succeed anyway. She'll leave him behind. She'll prove that the Simpson children could succeed if they tried hard enough, making his failures more obvious by contrast. Every prank against Lisa is an adult's frustration with his successful sibling, someone who did everything right while he did everything wrong. The theory explains why Bart's feelings toward Lisa are so intense and complicated. They're not really about childhood competition. They're about an adult man's unresolved feelings toward the sister who surpassed him. The tragic loop. The darkest aspect of this theory is the possibility that Bart has been reliving his childhood countless times, making the same mistakes, unable to change anything. The show's eternal present and repetitive nature suggests Bart is trapped in a loop. Every attempt to change his past fails. Every lesson he learns is forgotten. Every resolution to do better evaporates. He's trapped by forces beyond his control, forced to replay the same years over and over, watching his family and his life spiral through the same patterns while he remains powerless to change any of it. He knows what's coming. He remembers how it ends. But he cannot break the cycle. Time travel or memory reconstruction has trapped him in eternal repetition of his worst years. The theory transforms Bart from a simple troublemaker into a tragic figure caught in an eternal loop. An adult forced to relive his childhood with full knowledge of how badly it turns out, watching his future failures approach while unable to prevent them. He's a prisoner of time itself and his own regrets. Every episode is another attempt to get it right, another failure to change anything meaningful, another step toward the future he desperately wants to avoid but cannot escape. His pranks aren't rebellion, they're resignation. His underachievement isn't laziness, it's futility. His acceptance of being a failure isn't low self-esteem. It's adult knowledge that no matter how many times he tries, he cannot become anyone other than who he is, cannot change the fundamental trajectory of a life that has already happened and will continue happening the same way forever. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Lisa Simpson, the enlightened being theory. Lisa Simpson is the smartest member of the Simpson family, a gifted 8-year-old who plays saxophone, excels in every subject, and possesses wisdom that surpasses most adults. But according to a fascinating theory, Lisa isn't just an intelligent child, she's an enlightened being, possibly a Buddhist bodhisattva or other higher consciousness that has taken human form in Springfield, intentionally living among flawed humans to teach compassion and guide them toward enlightenment. Every moment of frustration Lisa experiences, every time she tries to improve her family or community, every instance of her wisdom surpassing her years isn't a child prodigy. It's an enlightened consciousness working to elevate humanity, one Springfield resident at a time. Lisa's impossible wisdom. The evidence for Lisa's enlightened nature begins with her consistent demonstration of wisdom, knowledge, and emotional maturity that no child could naturally possess. She discusses philosophy with sophistication that would challenge graduate students. She understands complex political and social issues in ways that require years of study and life experience. She demonstrates emotional intelligence that adults struggle to achieve. She speaks about morality, ethics, and existence with insight that suggests deep contemplation and understanding beyond what an 8-year-old could develop. Lisa engages with adults as intellectual equals. When she has conversations with teachers, with local intellectuals, With anyone who engages her seriously, she holds her own. She doesn't speak like a bright child. She speaks like someone with extensive knowledge and understanding temporarily confined to a child's body. Her vocabulary exceeds childhood acquisition. Her references span literature, history, and culture in ways that suggest comprehensive education she hasn't had time to receive. She solves complex problems that stump the adults around her. She sees patterns and connections that others miss. She serves as the family's moral compass, the voice of reason in chaos, the one person who consistently tries to do the right thing and understands what the right thing is. Throughout the series, Lisa has provided spiritual and existential insights that sound like they come from someone who has lived many lifetimes. She contemplates the nature of happiness, suffering, identity, and purpose in ways that 8-year-olds don't naturally consider. She understands that material success doesn't equal fulfillment. She recognizes that kindness matters more than achievement. She sees the interconnection between all beings. These aren't lessons she learned from her family or her environment. Springfield doesn't teach these values. The Simpsons don't model this wisdom. Lisa's understanding comes from somewhere else, from some source beyond her current life, suggesting she brought this knowledge with her when she took human form. The Buddhist connection. The most explicit evidence lies in Lisa's conversion to Buddhism and her deep understanding of its principles, suggesting this isn't a child exploring religion, but a being remembering its true nature. In the episode She of Little Faith, Lisa discovers Buddhism after becoming disillusioned with Christianity's commercialization. What's remarkable about this conversion is how instantly and completely Lisa understands Buddhist concepts. She doesn't struggle with the philosophy. She doesn't need extensive study or guidance. She encounters Buddhism and immediately recognizes it as true, as if she already knew these teachings and was simply waiting to encounter their formal expression. Buddhism introduced the concept of the bodhisattva, an enlightened being who chooses to remain in the cycle of death and rebirth to help other beings achieve enlightenment. Rather than escaping suffering themselves, bodhisattvas voluntarily return to the world to guide others. They take human form specifically to teach compassion, to reduce suffering, to demonstrate the path to enlightenment. Lisa matches every characteristic of a bodhisattva. She's wise beyond her years. She demonstrates endless compassion, even when others don't deserve it. She dedicates herself to reducing suffering in Springfield. She returns to help her family again and again, despite their failure to appreciate or understand her. Her Buddhist practice isn't performative or superficial. Lisa meditates regularly. She incorporates Buddhist principles into her daily life. She maintains equanimity in the face of disappointment. She practices non-attachment even as a child in a materialistic culture. She embodies the teachings rather than simply following them. This suggests Buddhism isn't something new Lisa learned. It's something she already was, the framework for describing her true nature as an enlightened being temporarily inhabiting human form. Why choose the Simpson family? If Lisa is truly an enlightened being, the question becomes, why would she choose to incarnate in the Simpson family, surrounded by ignorance, dysfunction, and chaos? Buddhist teaching suggests that enlightened beings intentionally choose difficult lives. They don't seek easy circumstances. They seek opportunities to teach, to demonstrate that enlightenment is possible even in challenging conditions. The Simpson family provides the perfect environment for a bodhisattva's work. Homer represents ignorance to be enlightened, his blindness to his own flaws, his inability to learn from mistakes, his constant cycling through the same errors gives Lisa endless opportunities to demonstrate patience and try to guide him toward awareness. Bart represents ego to be transcended. His selfishness, his need for attention, his rebellion against structure and authority all stem from ego attachment that Buddhism teaches must be overcome. Marge represents attachment to be released. Her clinging to family roles, her inability to imagine life beyond domestic service, her sacrifice of self for others demonstrates the kind of attachment that creates suffering. Springfield itself represents samsara, the wheel of suffering that Buddhism teaches humanity must escape. The town cycles through the same problems: Residents make the same mistakes. Nothing fundamentally changes. It's the perfect metaphor for the cycle of death and rebirth that traps unenlightened beings. A bodhisattva doesn't choose a family like the Simpsons despite their flaws. They choose such a family because of their flaws. Lisa's presence in this specific family isn't bad luck or narrative necessity. It's spiritual purpose. She incarnated exactly where an enlightened being would choose to incarnate, in circumstances that provide maximum opportunity to teach, to demonstrate compassion, to show that wisdom and peace are possible even when surrounded by their opposites. Her suffering as test and teaching. Throughout the series, Lisa experiences repeated disappointments, failures, and heartbreaks that would crush most people. Yet she continues seeking truth and trying to help others. Her environmental activism consistently fails. Springfield residents ignore her warnings about pollution, climate change, and ecological damage. Her romantic relationships end badly. Her crushes don't reciprocate. Her attempts at connection are rejected. Her family rarely appreciates her efforts. Homer mocks her intelligence. Bart undermines her projects. Marge doesn't understand her aspirations. Springfield resists every improvement she attempts. The changes she tries to implement are reversed. The lessons she tries to teach are ignored. Buddhist teaching emphasizes non-attachment to outcomes. The enlightened being works without demanding results. They act correctly because it's right, not because they expect success. Lisa embodies this principle. Despite constant failure, she doesn't become bitter. She doesn't stop trying. She doesn't develop resentment toward the people who ignore her. She maintains compassion for those who hurt her. She continues fighting for causes she believes in, even when losing is guaranteed. This persistence without bitterness, this continued effort without attachment to success, this maintenance of compassion despite disappointment demonstrates Buddhist principles at their highest level. Every defeat Lisa suffers is practice in non-attachment, in maintaining compassion despite disappointment, in continuing to work for good without demanding results. She could easily become cynical. She could give up on Springfield and its residents. She could decide that people who won't listen don't deserve her help. But she never does. She returns again and again, demonstrates kindness again and again, tries to help again and again. This isn't naive optimism. It's enlightened action. She understands that the outcome doesn't matter. The trying matters. The compassion matters. The demonstration that someone can maintain hope and kindness in hopeless circumstances matters more than whether any specific effort succeeds. The saxophone as spiritual tool. Lisa's saxophone playing takes on deeper significance when understood as a spiritual practice, a form of meditation through which she connects to her true enlightened nature. She plays when troubled or seeking clarity. The music becomes her meditation, her prayer, her method of accessing something beyond ordinary consciousness. Jazz, Lisa's preferred genre, emphasizes improvisation, flow, and present moment awareness. These are fundamentally Buddhist concepts. Jazz musicians enter a state of flow where thinking stops and pure expression emerges. They respond to the moment without planning or control. They let the music play itself through them. This is meditation. This is enlightenment practice. This is ego dissolution. Throughout the series, Lisa plays saxophone during emotional moments. When she's sad, she plays. When she's confused, she plays. When she needs to process something, she plays. The music isn't just artistic expression, it's spiritual practice. It's her method of maintaining connection to her true nature while trapped in human form and human limitation. The sound of her saxophone often affects those who hear it. People stop and listen. They're moved in ways they don't understand. This suggests the music carries something beyond notes and rhythm. It carries her enlightened consciousness, briefly touching others, momentarily elevating them, whether they recognize it or not. Her relationship with other enlightened figures. The theory gains support from Lisa's interactions with spiritual leaders and wise figures who consistently recognize something special in her. Throughout the series, when Lisa encounters genuinely wise people, they treat her differently than they treat other children. They don't condescend. They don't simplify their language. They engage with her as an equal, sometimes even deferring to her understanding. Buddhist monks, philosophers, artists, and intellectuals who visit Springfield often end up in conversation with Lisa. These conversations don't have the quality of adult teaching child. They have the quality of peers sharing understanding, of fellow travelers on the spiritual path, recognizing each other. In episodes featuring spiritual or religious themes, Lisa often demonstrates insights that surprise even teachers and leaders. She asks questions that cut to the heart of philosophical issues. She makes observations that reveal deep understanding. She sees through superficial explanations to underlying truth. These moments suggest she's not learning from these figures. She already knows what they know. She's simply encountering people who can articulate what she has always understood. The recognition is mutual. Spiritual leaders see Lisa and understand she's not an ordinary child. Lisa sees them and recognizes fellow enlightened beings or people far along the path. This mutual recognition appears repeatedly throughout the series, too consistent to be coincidence. The mission that never ends. If Lisa is an enlightened being on a mission to help humanity, the question arises, why does she never succeed? Why does Springfield remain as ignorant and chaotic as ever? Buddhist teaching provides the answer. Enlightenment cannot be forced. The bodhisattva's purpose isn't to fix everyone around them, but to demonstrate the path. Success is measured differently by enlightened beings. They don't expect immediate transformation. They work across lifetimes, across generations, planting seeds that may not sprout for years or decades. Lisa's small victories matter more than they appear. Every person she touches, every moment of compassion she demonstrates, every time she chooses kindness over bitterness plants a seed. Most of those seeds appear to die. Springfield residents seem unchanged by Lisa's efforts. But Buddhist teaching suggests that spiritual work operates on timescales humans cannot perceive. A single kind word might change someone's life years later. A demonstration of integrity might inspire someone decades in the future. Lisa's work isn't about immediate results. It's about maintaining the light, demonstrating that wisdom and compassion are possible, being the example even when no one seems to be watching. The theory transforms Lisa from a frustrated prodigy into an enlightened being playing an infinite game, working across lifetimes to guide humanity toward wisdom, accepting that true change occurs slowly and that her presence alone, her demonstration of compassion, wisdom, and persistence is itself the teaching she came to deliver. Every episode where Lisa tries and fails is actually an episode where she succeeds at her true mission. She demonstrates that one can maintain hope in hopeless circumstances, that one can be kind when surrounded by cruelty, that one can seek truth in an environment of ignorance. She is the light in Springfield's darkness, not because she illuminates everything, but because she continues burning even when darkness seems absolute. That persistence, that refusal to give up on humanity despite every reason to do so, is the teaching. That's what an enlightened being does. That's what a bodhisattva is. And that's what Lisa Simpson has been all along. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Maggie Simpson, the mastermind theory. Maggie Simpson is perhaps the most mysterious character in The Simpsons, a perpetually silent baby who has remained an infant for over 30 years. She never speaks, rarely acts, and appears to be the least important member of the Simpson family. But according to one of the show's most elaborate theories, this couldn't be further from the truth. Maggie isn't just observing the world around her, she's controlling it. She possesses genius-level intelligence that surpasses even Lisa's. And she's been orchestrating events in Springfield from her position as an apparently helpless baby, manipulating her family and the entire town while maintaining perfect cover as an innocent child. Every moment Maggie appears in the background, silently watching, she's actually the most active character in any scene, processing information, making calculations, and adjusting her plans. Her silence isn't developmental delay. It's strategic concealment of the most powerful mind in Springfield, the shooting of Mr. Burns. The most explicit evidence for Maggie's intelligence and capabilities comes from one of the show's most famous storylines, the shooting of Mr. Burns. In the two-part episode, Who Shot Mr. Burns?, Springfield's most powerful citizen is shot and nearly killed. The mystery of who shot him drives the entire storyline. Multiple suspects have motives. The investigation considers various possibilities. The resolution reveals that Maggie Simpson, a 1-year-old baby, was the shooter. The official explanation presents this as an accident. Mr. Burns attempted to steal Maggie's lollipop. She had a gun that had fallen from her father's pocket. In the struggle, the gun discharged, shooting Burns. This explanation makes no sense when examined closely. The physical impossibility of the sequence is staggering. Maggie would need to access the gun, which wasn't near her. She would need to aim it, despite lacking the motor control for precise aiming. She would need to fire it, despite not having the hand strength to pull a trigger. She would need to shoot Burns at an angle that suggests deliberate positioning, rather than random discharge. Most significantly, she would need to escape consequences entirely. A baby shoots the most powerful man in Springfield, and nothing happens to her. No investigation focuses on how a baby accessed a weapon. No one questions the impossibility of the accident explanation. Maggie faces no consequences whatsoever. The theory proposes this wasn't an accident. It was premeditated. Mr. Burns attempted to steal from Maggie. In his greed and cruelty, he tried to take a baby's candy, demonstrating that he would hurt anyone, even the most helpless, to get what he wanted. Maggie processed this information, recognized Burns as a threat, accessed her father's gun through planning rather than chance, and executed a calculated response. She shot Burns in a way that could have been fatal. She then escaped all consequences by maintaining her appearance of helplessness. Everyone accepted the accident explanation because no one could conceive of a baby being capable of intentional action. Maggie used their underestimation as cover for what was actually a perfectly executed act of revenge against someone who wronged her. Her pattern of remarkable feats. The shooting of Mr. Burns isn't an isolated incident. Throughout the series, Maggie has consistently demonstrated capabilities that far exceed any infant. She's saved Homer's life multiple times, intervening in situations where Homer would have died without her action. She doesn't intervene randomly or accidentally. She acts precisely when needed, suggesting awareness of danger and understanding of how to prevent it. In the episode A Streetcar Named Marge, Maggie engages in a coordinated fight scene with other babies at daycare, demonstrating physical combat skills and tactical thinking that babies don't possess. She operates vehicles, including driving a car to save her family, despite being unable to reach pedals or see over the steering wheel through any normal means. She solves complex problems that adult characters cannot figure out. She understands conversations happening around her, responding appropriately even though she supposedly can't comprehend language. She displays strategic timing in her actions, intervening at crucial moments rather than randomly. She protects specific family members from specific threats, suggesting she can predict danger and position herself to prevent it. Her interventions are never too early or too late. They happen exactly when needed, suggesting precision timing that requires both awareness and planning. Throughout the series, Maggie has appeared in the background of scenes, present but not participating. According to the theory, these background appearances aren't just animation choices. They're documentation of Maggie conducting surveillance. She positions herself where she can observe crucial conversations and events. She watches her family's interactions. She witnesses conflicts and alliances forming. She's present for decisions that will affect the family's future. All of this information gets processed by her genius-level intellect, stored in perfect memory, and used to predict future events and plan interventions. The strategic silence. The most powerful evidence for Maggie's intelligence is her continued silence, a strategic choice that maintains her cover and maximizes her advantage. The show has established that Maggie can physically speak. The episode, Lisa's First Word, Maggie speaks one word: Daddy. She demonstrates the physical capability for speech. After that single word, she returns to silence and has remained silent ever since. This proves she's choosing not to speak rather than being unable to speak. The question becomes, why would an infant capable of speech choose to remain silent? The answer lies in the strategic advantage silence provides. Speaking would reveal intelligence. Once family and neighbors know Maggie can speak, they'll start attributing more awareness and capability to her. They'll watch what they say around her. They'll restrict her movement and access. They'll expect her to participate in ways that would limit her freedom to observe and act. As a silent baby, Maggie has unlimited access to information. Adults speak freely around babies because babies can't understand or remember what they hear. Secrets are shared in Maggie's presence without consideration that she's absorbing everything. Plans are discussed while she's in the room. Arguments happen while she watches. People say things around Maggie they would never say if they knew she understood every word. Her silence also means she's never questioned about her actions. When strange things happen, no one asks Maggie what she saw or what she knows. Babies can't provide testimony. They can't explain themselves. This means Maggie can act without fear of being interrogated afterward. She can intervene in situations, change outcomes, manipulate events, and never face questions about her involvement. Her helpless appearance combined with her silence creates perfect cover for an intelligence operation. She's the ultimate spy, present everywhere, understood by no one, suspected by no one, capable of acting with complete deniability. Her observation network. The theory proposes that Maggie has created an unparalleled information network simply by being present in every situation while being completely overlooked. Babies are taken everywhere. They have no restrictions on their movement because people don't consider them capable of understanding or remembering what they experience. Maggie attends adult gatherings. She's present at work events. She accompanies family members on errands. She sits in on important conversations. She witnesses private moments. She sees and hears everything that happens in the Simpson household and much of what happens in Springfield beyond it. Adults speak freely around Maggie because they assume her infant brain can't process or retain complex information. They discuss family secrets while she's in the room. They argue about finances, relationships, and problems while she sits nearby. They make plans and decisions without considering that Maggie is absorbing every word. Homer discusses work problems while Maggie is present. Marge talks about family issues with friends while Maggie listens. Bart and Lisa have conversations that reveal their schemes and concerns. All of this information flows into Maggie's awareness, processed by her genius-level intelligence, stored in perfect memory, and used to understand the complete picture of her family's situation. She knows everyone's weaknesses and secrets. She's heard Homer's confessions about his failures. She's witnessed Marge's moments of despair. She's observed Bart's vulnerabilities beneath his tough exterior. She's seen Lisa's loneliness and frustration. She understands the dynamics of her parents' marriage better than they do because she's been present for every argument, every reconciliation, every moment of affection and conflict. This comprehensive knowledge gives her enormous power. She can predict how family members will react to situations. She can manipulate outcomes by making small interventions at crucial moments. She can protect them from threats they don't see coming because she has information they lack. The pacifier as symbol. Maggie's constant pacifier takes on symbolic significance when viewed as a representation of her self-imposed silence and patience. She's literally never without it. The pacifier appears in every scene featuring Maggie. It's her most consistent and recognizable characteristic beyond her bow. According to the theory, the pacifier isn't a comfort object. It's a physical manifestation of her choice to remain silent. It represents deliberate self-silencing. The pacifier occupies her mouth, making speech impossible while it's present. This serves as a constant reminder to herself to maintain silence, to stay in character, to keep the perfect cover that allows her to operate unseen. Times when Maggie loses her pacifier temporarily become moments of vulnerability in this interpretation. Without the physical reminder of her chosen silence, she's at risk of accidentally speaking, of revealing her intelligence through verbal response to situations. The show treats Maggie's quest to retrieve her pacifier when she loses it as comedy, a baby's attachment to a comfort item. The theory suggests these moments are actually tense situations where Maggie risks exposure, where her cover might be blown if she's without the physical mechanism that reminds her to stay silent. Her determination to keep the pacifier isn't infantile attachment, it's strategic necessity. The opening credit sequence features Maggie being scanned at a grocery store checkout, the price reading as 847.63 yen. This specific amount equals the average monthly cost of raising a baby in the United States when the show premiered. The joke appears to be about the expense of children, but the theory proposes a different reading. Maggie's awareness of being priced, of being scanned, of being quantified suggests consciousness of her position in the family's economic situation. She knows exactly what she costs. She's aware of being a financial burden. This awareness exceeds what a baby should possess. It's evidence of her intelligence operating even in the show's opening sequence, where her silent presence while being literally priced demonstrates her understanding of her role and her family's financial stress. Her relationship with each family member. Maggie's interactions with her family reveal sophisticated understanding of each person's psychology and how to influence them. With Homer, she uses his negligence to her advantage. Homer rarely pays attention to what Maggie is doing, allowing her to act freely. But she times her appearances in his life carefully, showing up during his rare heroic moments to encourage his better nature, reinforcing behaviors she wants to see continue. She's present when Homer does something right, creating positive reinforcement that guides him toward being slightly less terrible than he would otherwise be. With Marge, Maggie represents purpose and anchor. Marge needs to be needed. Her identity revolves around being a mother. Maggie, as the eternal baby, ensures Marge always has someone to care for, always has a role that justifies her existence. Maggie understands this and maintains her helpless appearance in part to give Marge the purpose she requires. She occasionally displays just enough neediness to keep Marge feeling necessary without being so dependent that Marge feels overwhelmed. It's a careful balance Maggie maintains through precise calibration of how much helplessness to display. With Bart, Maggie serves as observer and occasional aid. She watches his schemes, learning his tactics, understanding how he thinks. Sometimes she helps him in subtle ways, ensuring a prank succeeds when she judges it harmless, or teaching him a lesson when she judges it harmful. She's studying him, learning from his success at manipulation and mischief, incorporating his techniques into her own understanding of how to influence outcomes. With Lisa, Maggie represents both audience and support. She's often present when Lisa plays saxophone, when Lisa studies, when Lisa expresses frustration about being misunderstood. Maggie's silent presence provides Lisa with an audience that never judges, never interrupts, never fails to appreciate her. Maggie understands Lisa's isolation and provides companionship through simple presence, giving Lisa what she needs, even though Lisa doesn't realize Maggie is doing it intentionally. What is Maggie's goal? If Maggie is truly a super-intelligent mastermind, the crucial question becomes, what is she working toward? What is her ultimate goal? The theory offers several possibilities. Perhaps she's protecting her family from external threats. Her interventions consistently benefit the Simpsons. She saves Homer's life. She shoots threats like Mr. Burns. She manipulates situations to work out favorably for her family. This suggests her primary goal is their protection and well-being. She's using her intelligence and her perfect cover to guard them from dangers they don't see, to steer them away from disasters they would blindly walk into, to ensure they survive despite their collective incompetence. Perhaps she's waiting for the right moment to reveal herself. She's gathering power, information, and strategic positioning. When she finally speaks, when she reveals her intelligence, she wants to do so from a position of absolute advantage. She's building a comprehensive understanding of Springfield, documenting everyone's secrets, establishing invisible influence over town affairs. When she chooses to reveal her true nature, she'll do so as someone who already controls everything. The timing must be perfect. She needs sufficient power that revealing herself doesn't make her vulnerable. She needs enough information that she can protect herself from any reaction her revelation might cause. Perhaps she's simply enjoying her position of control. Power is intoxicating, especially power exercised without anyone knowing you possess it. Maggie has achieved something remarkable. She controls outcomes while everyone believes she's helpless. She influences events while maintaining complete deniability. She operates the ultimate puppet show, with her family and all of Springfield as puppets who don't realize they're being manipulated. This level of control, this ability to make things happen through invisible influence, might be its own reward. Maggie might not have an endgame. She might simply be enjoying the game itself, the challenge of maintaining her cover while continuously expanding her influence. Perhaps she's conducting an experiment. She's testing humanity's responses to various situations. She's observing how people behave when they think no one important is watching. She's collecting data on human psychology, on family dynamics, on social systems. Springfield serves as her laboratory. The Simpson family serves as her primary subjects. She manipulates variables and observes results. She creates situations to test specific hypotheses about human behavior. This would make Maggie not just intelligent, but scientific, approaching life with rigorous methodology, using her position to conduct research that no human researcher could accomplish, because human researchers are always suspected of being human and capable of judgment. The meta-implications. The theory extends beyond Maggie herself to explain certain meta-elements of The Simpsons as a show. The couch gag variations that open each episode might be Maggie's perspective on her family's repetitive patterns. Each variation shows the family arriving home and sitting on the couch in different ways, sometimes normal, sometimes bizarre. If The Simpsons is Maggie's chronicle, these variations might represent her awareness that the same events play out differently depending on perspective, that the pattern of family coming home repeats, but never identically, that life is both routine and constantly changing simultaneously. The opening sequence focuses significantly on Maggie. She's scanned at the grocery store. She's shown during key moments of the sequence. The entire opening builds toward the family's arrival home, where Maggie is often doing something distinctive during the couch gag. This focus suggests Maggie's centrality to the show's structure. If someone is telling the Simpsons story, why not the character who observes everything, who is present in almost every scene, who sees the family from a unique vantage point? Maggie as narrator explains why the show maintains certain patterns, why it focuses on specific details, why it structures itself the way it does. The show is Maggie's telling. The focus is Maggie's focus. The perspective is Maggie's perspective. Fourth wall elements involving Maggie suggest awareness that exceeds other characters. When the show breaks its reality, when moments acknowledge the audience or the show's existence as a show, Maggie is often present or central to those moments. This suggests she exists on a different level of awareness than other characters. She knows things they don't know. She sees things they can't see. She understands The Simpsons as a construction in ways other characters don't, because she's the constructor, the intelligence behind the chronicle, the consciousness that's recording and organizing these events into narrative form for purposes known only to her. Why this theory transforms Maggie? The mastermind theory completely transforms Maggie from the least important Simpson to potentially the most important. Her silence becomes a powerful choice rather than developmental stage. Every appearance becomes potentially significant rather than background decoration. The baby role becomes the ultimate disguise rather than a limitation. What seemed like absence of character reveals itself as presence of such profound intelligence that it must remain hidden. Maggie goes from being invisible to being the only one who truly sees, from being overlooked to being the one conducting the oversight, from being powerless to being the hidden power source driving every event. The theory transforms Maggie from a simple cartoon baby into the most complex character in The Simpsons, a super-intelligent being who has found the perfect cover in helplessness, who wields power through invisibility, and who understands that the greatest control comes not from demanding attention, but from never being noticed at all. While every other character shouts for recognition, Maggie remains silent, watching, calculating, and controlling everything from behind the perfect disguise of an infant who supposedly understands nothing. Every episode where she appears in the background isn't wasted animation. It's documentation of the true protagonist observing her subjects, gathering data, maintaining her invisible influence over a family and town that exist entirely unaware that they're being guided, protected, and perhaps experimented upon by the most powerful mind in Springfield, who has chosen to appear as the most powerless person, turning complete helplessness into absolute power through strategic intelligence and perfect patience. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Ned Flanders, the Devil Theory. Ned Flanders is Springfield's most devout Christian, a man so perfectly good, so unfailingly kind, so relentlessly positive that he borders on the supernatural. He's Homer's neighbor, his frequent helper, and the living embodiment of Christian virtue. But according to one of the show's most theologically complex theories, Ned Flanders isn't a good Christian at all. He's the devil himself, masquerading as the perfect neighbor to torment Homer Simpson specifically, testing his soul and driving him toward sin through the very act of being impossibly virtuous. Every act of kindness is spiritual warfare. Every helpful gesture is a temptation. Every moment of Ned's perfection is designed to push Homer further from grace. Every time Ned offers to lend Homer something, every time he invites the Simpsons to a barbecue, every time he demonstrates Christian charity and love, he's not being a good neighbor. He's being the devil, systematically destroying Homer's soul through the cruelest method possible, by being so perfectly good that Homer feels inadequate, resentful, and driven to sin. The impossible perfection. The first evidence for Ned's demonic nature is that his level of perfection is literally impossible for any human being to achieve. Ned never sins. He never fails. He never has genuinely negative thoughts. He maintains positivity despite tragedy, including the death of his wife Maud. His goodness never wavers or shows cracks even in circumstances that would break anyone. His faith remains unshakable through tests that would destroy most people's belief. No human being can maintain this level of consistency. Even Jesus was tempted. Even saints struggled with doubt. Even the most devout believers experience anger, jealousy, or despair. Ned never does. Throughout the series, situations arise that should push Ned to his breaking point. His wife dies in a freak accident. His children face danger. His business struggles. His neighbors treat him terribly. Homer, whom Ned tries to help constantly, responds with mockery and abuse. Ned lends things that Homer destroys. Ned offers advice that Homer ignores. Ned extends friendship that Homer throws back in his face. Any normal person would snap. Any human being would develop resentment, would stop helping, would at minimum show frustration. Ned maintains perfect kindness. He forgives instantly and completely. He continues helping without bitterness. He never learns to protect himself from people who hurt him. Biblical teaching establishes that all humans sin. Romans 3:23 states explicitly that all have sinned and fall short of God's glory. This means perfection is impossible for humans. Any human who appears perfect must be hiding sin or must not be human at all. Ned shows no sin. He displays no hidden darkness. His public face matches his private reality. This impossibility points toward non-human nature. If Ned can't be a perfect human because perfect humans don't exist, then Ned must be something else wearing a human mask. The theory proposes he's the devil, the one being who could perfectly impersonate goodness because he understands goodness thoroughly enough to simulate it without being genuinely good. The name as clue. The theory gains intriguing support from Ned Flanders' name itself, which may contain a hidden message about his true nature. Ned spelled backward becomes den, as in devil's den or den of iniquity. This reversal suggests hidden opposite nature, the inverse of what appears on the surface. Flanders contains letters that can be rearranged in various ways, though no single anagram definitively proves the theory. What matters is that the name itself seems deliberately chosen to hint at hidden meaning. The Simpsons frequently uses character names symbolically. Characters are often named for what they represent. Homer's name references the ancient poet. Bart's name is an anagram of brat. Names in this show rarely happen by accident. Religious tradition holds that demons and devils hide their true names, using pseudonyms to mask their identity. Knowing a demon's true name supposedly grants power over it. If Ned is Satan, he would use a false name, one that sounds wholesome and friendly while containing subtle hints of his real identity for those clever enough to notice. Ned Flanders sounds like the perfect neighbor's name, pleasant and non-threatening. But hidden within that pleasantness, reversed and rearranged, linguistic analysis suggests darker possibilities. The theory proposes the name itself is a clue deliberately planted by the show's creators, a hint that Ned isn't what he seems, that his wholesome exterior masks something sinister, that his identity contains a reverse truth waiting to be discovered by anyone who looks closely enough. The treehouse of horror evidence. The most explicit evidence comes from the Simpsons Halloween specials, where Ned Flanders has appeared as the devil multiple times. In Treehouse of Horror 4, specifically the segment The Devil and Homer Simpson, Ned appears as Satan himself. He doesn't play the role awkwardly or as a joke. He inhabits it perfectly. His devil persona feels natural, comfortable, and convincing. He wears the costume of evil with the same ease he wears his sweater vest. The performance doesn't feel like good neighbor Ned pretending to be evil. It feels like evil Ned briefly dropping his good neighbor disguise. Other Treehouse of Horror episodes feature demonic Ned, or variations where his goodness is revealed as facade or inversion. These Halloween specials are officially non-canon. The show explicitly states that Treehouse episodes don't count as part of the regular continuity. But what if that's misdirection? What if the Halloween episodes are when The Simpsons drops its pretense and shows us the truth it legally or socially can't acknowledge in regular episodes? Many television shows use special episodes to reveal truths that regular episodes must conceal. Halloween provides cover. Everyone understands Halloween content as fantasy, as playing with dark themes without serious implications. This gives creators freedom to tell actual truth while maintaining deniability. When Ned appears as the devil in Treehouse of Horror, the theory proposes he's not playing a role. He's finally appearing as himself. The non-canon excuse allows the show to reveal Ned's true nature while protecting itself from controversy. Viewers laugh at Devil Ned because it's Halloween, but the show is showing exactly what it's been hinting at throughout regular episodes. Ned is the devil. His goodness is performance. His helpfulness is temptation. His perfect Christianity is the perfect disguise for Satan conducting spiritual warfare in suburban America. The Treehouse episodes aren't alternate reality stories. They're moments of truth hidden inside comedy, revelation disguised as Halloween fun. How Ned torments Homer. If Ned is the devil, his method of torment is brilliant in its subtlety. He drives Homer to sin, not through obvious temptation, but through being impossibly good. Homer constantly compares himself to Ned. He sees Ned's success and feels his own failure. He sees Ned's happy family and resents his own dysfunction. He sees Ned's prosperity and feels jealous. He sees Ned's morality and feels inadequate. Every comparison drives Homer deeper into the 7 deadly sins. Envy consumes him as he watches Ned have everything Homer wants. Wrath builds as Ned's kindness infuriates rather than touches him. Pride prevents Homer from accepting help from someone he considers inferior. Greed manifests as Homer tries to take what Ned has. Gluttony and sloth remain Homer's defaults. Ned's perfection pushes Homer into every cardinal sin. The brilliance of this approach is that Homer can't identify Ned as an enemy. Ned helps him. Ned is kind to him. Ned never directly harms him. Homer can't justify his hatred of Ned because Ned has done nothing wrong. This creates cognitive dissonance that drives Homer toward irrational behavior. He knows he shouldn't hate Ned. Ned is perfect. Therefore, something must be wrong with Homer for hating someone so good. This self-blame, this awareness of his own sinfulness contrasted with Ned's virtue, pushes Homer into despair and further sin. He can't be good like Ned, so why try to be good at all? Ned's goodness doesn't inspire Homer to improve. It convinces Homer that improvement is impossible, that he's fundamentally flawed, that sin is his natural state. Ned's help often backfires for Homer. Ned lends things that create problems for Homer. Ned offers advice that Homer follows to disastrous results. Ned's kindness puts Homer in positions where he feels obligated but also resentful. This isn't accidental. It's carefully calibrated psychological torture. The devil doesn't need to offer forbidden fruit directly. He just needs to be Ned Flanders, living next door, being perfect, making Homer feel worthless every single day. Every kind word is a knife. Every generous act is torture. Every demonstration of virtue is designed to push Homer further from grace, making him hate goodness itself. Why target Homer specifically? If Ned is Satan, the question arises, why Homer? Why has the devil taken personal interest in this particular slovenly, ignorant man? The answer lies in what Homer represents. Homer is every man. He's not particularly evil or particularly good. He's average. He loves his family despite hurting them. He tries, occasionally, despite mostly failing. He has capacity for both kindness and cruelty. He represents the ordinary human being, flawed but not irredeemable, sinful but not lost. If Satan can corrupt an average man who loves his family, who occasionally tries to do right, who has capacity for both good and evil, then he can corrupt anyone. Homer is the test case for all of humanity. Biblical tradition includes stories of Satan testing ordinary people. Job was tested despite being righteous. Eve was tempted despite being innocent. The devil doesn't only pursue the obviously evil, he pursues those who might go either way, those whose souls are genuinely in question. Homer's soul is in question. He could become better. He has moments of genuine goodness, genuine love, genuine sacrifice. Or he could become worse. He has capacity for destruction, for selfishness, for cruelty. The battle for Homer's soul is the battle for every ordinary person's soul. Winning Homer means proving that average people can be corrupted, that family love isn't enough, that occasional goodness doesn't protect against eternal damnation. The Leftorium is test. Ned's store, the Leftorium, takes on sinister significance when examined through the lens of his demonic nature. Sinister literally derives from the Latin word for left. Left-handedness has been associated with evil throughout biblical and historical tradition. The right hand is blessed. The left hand is cursed. God's sheep stand to the right. Goats destined for hell stand to the left. Ned runs a store called the Leftorium, literally celebrating the sinister side. He's built his business around left-handedness, around the direction associated with evil, around the side biblical tradition marks as wrong. The store's success defies business logic. How many left-handed people live in Springfield? How can a store catering to such a small demographic remain profitable? The theory suggests the Leftorium doesn't need to make money through normal business means. It serves a different purpose. It's a symbol, a statement, a joke only Ned understands. He's telling everyone he represents the sinister path, hiding the truth in plain sight where no one would think to question it, because it's just a store for left-handed people. The devil running a store called the Leftorium isn't ironic, it's honest. He's literally advertising his nature, confident that humans are too blind to see it. Ned's relationship with God. Perhaps the most telling evidence is how Ned relates to God and religion itself, which reveals patterns consistent with Satan rather than a faithful servant. Ned's knowledge of Scripture is too perfect. He quotes Bible verses from memory constantly. He knows theological arguments in detail. He demonstrates comprehensive biblical knowledge that exceeds even dedicated scholars. This shouldn't be remarkable until you consider that Satan knows the Bible better than most Christians. Satan was an angel. He understands Scripture completely. When he tempted Jesus in the wilderness, Satan quoted Scripture. Knowledge of holy text doesn't prove holiness, it proves study. The devil has studied the Bible more thoroughly than any human because he was present for much of its history. Ned's interpretations of Scripture often tend toward the literal and harsh. He emphasizes judgment over mercy. He focuses on rules over relationships. He uses religion to separate people into saved and damned, righteous and sinful, acceptable and unacceptable. This Pharisaical approach to faith matches warnings in the Bible about those who appear most holy. Jesus saved his harshest criticism for the religiously perfect, the ones who followed every rule while missing the spirit of the law. Ned follows every rule. He performs every religious obligation, but the theory questions whether his heart is truly in it or whether he's performing what perfect Christianity looks like, mimicking the form while lacking the substance. The devil would know Scripture perfectly. He would appear as the most devout believer. He would use religion itself as his disguise and his weapon. Ned Flanders doesn't just believe in God. He performs belief too perfectly, revealing not genuine faith, but a being who knows exactly how faith should appear and is mimicking it with supernatural precision. His religiosity is too complete, too consistent, too perfect to be human. Humans struggle with faith. They doubt, they question, they fail to live up to their beliefs. Ned never struggles. He never doubts. He never fails to live righteously. This perfection in faith suggests someone who doesn't have faith because they already have knowledge. Someone who doesn't struggle with doubt because they know exactly what the truth is. Someone who doesn't have to try to be good because they're deliberately performing goodness while being fundamentally evil. The family Ned keeps. Ned's family situation provides both supporting evidence and interesting complications for the devil theory. Maud's death raises disturbing questions. Did the devil arrange his wife's death? Was Maud real or illusory? Did she discover Ned's true nature and have to be eliminated? The circumstances of her death seem almost calculated, a freak accident at a sporting event that no one could have predicted or prevented. Yet it happened. Maud died. Ned grieved perfectly, demonstrating appropriate sadness while maintaining faith, never breaking character even in tragedy. If he's the devil, this performance makes sense. If he's human, this level of composure suggests something wrong. His children, Rod and Todd, display uncanny obedience. They never rebel. They never question. They follow their father's teachings without the normal childhood resistance. Real children push boundaries. Real children test limits. Real children question authority. Rod and Todd do none of this. They're perfectly compliant, suggesting they're either not real children but constructs, or they're under some form of control that prevents normal childhood behavior. Their names even sound like discipline instruments. Spare the rod is a biblical phrase about punishment. These children seem less like individuals and more like props in Ned's performance of perfect fatherhood. Whether Ned's family is complicit, ignorant, or carefully constructed illusion, they serve his purposes perfectly. They make him appear as a normal, devoted family man rather than an ancient evil living next door to his target, wearing domesticity like a costume while conducting spiritual warfare. Every element of Ned's life supports his cover as the perfect neighbor. His family gives him legitimacy, his business gives him respectability, his religiosity gives him moral authority. He's constructed the perfect disguise, every detail calculated to make people trust him, admire him, believe he represents genuine goodness while he uses that position to destroy the man living next door. The eternal test. The show's floating timeline takes on theological significance when understood as Ned's eternal test of Homer. Nobody ages because this isn't a normal time stream, it's a spiritual testing ground. Each episode represents another attempt to corrupt Homer, another situation designed to push him towards sin. The repetitive nature of the show mirrors the repetitive nature of spiritual warfare. The devil doesn't give up after one attempt. He returns again and again with new approaches, new temptations, new methods of attack. Homer never truly wins or loses because the test must continue. Each episode resets moral development because the battle for souls isn't about single victories. It's about ongoing struggle. Time doesn't move forward because this isn't a story with an ending. It's an eternal test, a spiritual battle, playing out in an infinite present where the devil and his target replay their conflict endlessly. Homer can never definitively win, because winning would mean escaping the test. He can never definitively lose, because losing would end the test. The point isn't victory or defeat. The point is the testing itself. Ned needs Homer to remain in play, always close to corruption but never quite falling, always capable of redemption but never quite achieving it. This eternal loop serves Ned's purposes. He gets to refine his techniques. He gets to study human nature through Homer. He gets to conduct his experiment forever. Why this theory transforms both characters. The devil theory transforms both Ned and Homer from simple sitcom characters into participants in cosmic spiritual warfare. Ned becomes a tragic villain, serving an eternal role he cannot escape. Even as the devil, he's trapped playing the perfect neighbor forever, unable to reveal himself, unable to stop the game, condemned to endless repetition of the same test. Homer becomes an unlikely spiritual hero, an ordinary man resisting the devil's most insidious temptation without even knowing he's doing it. His survival, despite inadequacy, becomes remarkable. His maintenance of his soul, despite constant provocation, becomes heroic. Their conflict gains meaning and weight when understood through this lens. Every neighborly interaction becomes a battle for eternal salvation. The mundane details of suburban life become the theater for cosmic struggle. What appears as simple comedy reveals itself as theology, as meditation on good and evil, as exploration of how the devil might actually operate in the modern world. He wouldn't appear as a monster, he'd appear as Ned Flanders. He'd be kind and helpful and perfect. He'd destroy people not through obvious temptation, but through making them hate the good, resent the righteous, and embrace their worst selves as rebellion against impossible standards. The theory transforms The Simpsons from a comedy about a dysfunctional family into a theological parable about an ordinary man resisting the devil's most insidious temptation. Ned Flanders becomes the ultimate villain, conducting spiritual warfare through kindness, using virtue as a weapon, destroying souls through the cruelest method imaginable, making goodness itself intolerable. Homer Simpson becomes an unlikely hero, maintaining his soul despite inadequacy, envy, and endless provocation, surviving the devil's attack not through strength or righteousness, but through sheer stubborn resistance and occasional flashes of genuine love for his family. Their eternal conflict, disguised as neighborly rivalry, reveals itself as nothing less than the battle for human salvation, playing out in suburban Springfield, where the fate of an everyman's soul hangs in balance every single day, with the devil next door offering help while hoping for damnation. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Mr. Burns, the immortal theory. Charles Montgomery Burns is Springfield's wealthiest and most powerful citizen, the owner of the nuclear power plant, and the closest thing The Simpsons has to a pure villain. He's portrayed as elderly, frail, and bizarrely out of touch with modern reality. But according to a compelling theory backed by substantial evidence from the show itself, Mr. Burns isn't merely old. He's ancient. He's been alive for centuries, possibly millennia, sustained by some form of immortality that the show hints at repeatedly, but never explicitly confirms. Whether he's a vampire, some other supernatural creature, or simply a human who has discovered the secret of eternal life, Mr. Burns has walked the earth far longer than any normal human lifespan would allow. Every reference to Burns's past, every impossible memory, every time he survives what should kill him isn't comedy or exaggeration. It's evidence that Charles Montgomery Burns has been alive for far longer than anyone suspects, an immortal being walking among mortals, accumulating wealth and power across centuries. The impossible age references. The evidence for Burns's immortality begins with his own statements about his past, which place him at historical events spanning centuries. Throughout the series, Burns has claimed to remember events from the 1800s. He references the Civil War era with the specificity of someone who lived through it. He discusses pre-Civil War America with personal knowledge rather than historical knowledge. He mentions inventions and cultural shifts from hundreds of years ago as things he witnessed firsthand rather than learned about. His stated age changes across episodes, but it's always impossibly old. Sometimes he claims to be in his 100s. Other times, references suggest he's far older. In the episode Rosebud, flashbacks to Burns's childhood appear to take place in the late 1800s or early 1900s, but details are deliberately vague. Burns has historical photographs showing him unchanged across decades. The same face appears in photos from different eras spanning a century or more. His appearance doesn't match the progression of aging these photos should show. A person photographed in 1900 and photographed in 2000 should show dramatic aging. Burns looks the same across all time periods, suggesting he doesn't age normally or ages so slowly that a century produces minimal change. Burns has memories spanning multiple centuries. He discusses historical figures as acquaintances. He references events he couldn't have witnessed unless he lived for an impossibly long time. He speaks about the past with the familiarity of personal experience rather than academic knowledge. A human being cannot have memories spanning 3 centuries. These aren't the confused recollections of a senile old man. They're the accurate memories of someone who has actually lived through these eras, who has existed across generations, who has watched history unfold from a perspective no mortal could possess. The vampire evidence. Beyond mere immortality, multiple pieces of evidence suggest Burns is specifically a vampire, a supernatural creature that feeds on life force to sustain its eternal existence. His physical appearance matches classic vampire descriptions. He's extraordinarily pale, almost corpse-like. He's painfully thin, skeletal, his skin stretched tight over bones. His hands are claw-like. His teeth, while not always shown as fangs, are described as threatening and unnatural. He moves with an otherworldly quality, sometimes seeming to float or glide rather than walk. His eyes have a predatory gleam. Everything about his physical appearance suggests death animated, a corpse that continues moving. Burns avoids sunlight. He's almost never seen outdoors during daylight. His office has thick curtains. He travels in covered vehicles. When forced into sunlight, he reacts with discomfort or pain. The show has made explicit jokes about Burns's reaction to sun, showing him weakening or becoming ill when exposed to daylight for extended periods. His mansion is gothic, full of shadows and dark corners. It contains secret passages and hidden rooms. The architecture itself suggests vampire dwelling, designed for someone who lives in darkness, who needs spaces that protect from light, who has existed long enough to prefer the architectural style of centuries past. Burns's blood is described as unusual in multiple episodes. Medical examinations reveal his blood doesn't function normally. He has conditions that should be impossible. His body maintains functions that should have stopped decades ago. In one episode, a doctor examining Burns discovers he's technically deceased according to multiple metrics, but continues functioning anyway. Burns doesn't have a normal medical condition. He has an unnatural state that keeps him alive despite his body being essentially dead. This description matches vampire biology perfectly. Vampires are undead. They're animated corpses. They're dead but moving, and Burns fits this description precisely. His impossible survival. Throughout the series, Burns has survived injuries and conditions that would kill any normal human, demonstrating resilience that confirms his non-human nature. Maggie shot him. The bullet should have been fatal. It wasn't. Burns recovered and returned to normal function. He's been exposed to numerous diseases simultaneously. In one episode, a doctor lists dozens of conditions Burns carries, any one of which should kill him. The doctor explains these conditions exist in perfect balance, canceling each other out in what's called Three Stooges syndrome. This medical impossibility becomes slightly less impossible if Burns is supernatural. His vampire nature allows him to survive conditions that would kill humans because he's not operating under human biology. Burns has survived other assassination attempts, accidents, and disasters. He's fallen from heights. He's been crushed. He's been poisoned. Nothing kills him permanently. Every injury heals or is survived through impossible means. His frailty is deceiving. He appears weak and vulnerable, and in some physical ways, he is. But he cannot die. His immortality protects him. No matter what damage his body sustains, he continues existing. This supernatural resilience explains his survival across centuries. Accident and violence haven't claimed him because they cannot claim him. He's beyond mortality, his existence sustained by something other than normal life force. The power plant as energy source. The theory proposes that Burns owns the nuclear power plant not primarily for profit, but because it provides the energy he needs to sustain his immortal existence. Nuclear energy as life force makes symbolic sense. Vampires feed on life energy, traditionally through blood. In the modern world, nuclear energy represents concentrated power, massive amounts of energy in small packages. Burns positions himself at the source of this power, surrounded by it, bathed in radiation daily. According to the theory, this radiation sustains him the way blood sustains traditional vampires. He's adapted to modern times, finding a new form of energy to consume. The plant's dangerous conditions drain workers. Springfield experiences high rates of illness correlating with the plant's operation. Three-eyed fish and mutations appear in the environment surrounding the plant. The entire town suffers from Burns's presence because his feeding ground poisons everyone around him. He literally drains the life force from Springfield, converting the town's health into his continued existence. The nuclear plant isn't just his business, it's his feeding ground, a modern method of draining life force from an entire community, converting nuclear energy into the supernatural sustenance that maintains his immortal existence. Burns's proximity to the power source explains his survival. He visits the plant constantly despite having no operational need to be present. He could run the business from his mansion. Instead, he maintains an office at the plant itself, positioning himself as close as possible to the energy source. He needs regular exposure to maintain his existence. The radiation that would kill normal humans feeds him. The energy that creates illness in others sustains his life. He's built his entire operation around ensuring continuous access to the power that keeps him alive. Smithers as familiar. Burns's relationship with Wayland Smithers takes on sinister meaning when viewed as a vampire and his human familiar. Smithers displays devotion to Burns that exceeds normal employer-employee relationships. He's obsessively dedicated. He knows Burns's secrets. He protects Burns from exposure. He's willing to commit crimes for Burns. He enables Burns's worst behaviors. This level of devotion suggests supernatural compulsion or the classical vampire-servant dynamic. Throughout folklore, vampires maintain human servants called familiars or thralls, humans under the vampire's control who serve and protect their master. Smithers might be under thrall, his will compromised by Burns's supernatural influence. Or he might be a willing familiar, someone who serves Burns in exchange for something only an immortal can provide. Perhaps Burns has promised Smithers immortality. Perhaps Burns has shown Smithers enough of his true nature that Smithers serves out of fear. Perhaps Smithers is genuinely in love with Burns and his devotion stems from that love, warped though it is. Whatever the mechanism, Smithers functions as a classical familiar. He's the human face Burns shows to the world. He manages the practical details of Burns's existence. He protects Burns from discovery. He ensures Burns can continue feeding without exposure. Historical accumulation of wealth. Burns's extraordinary wealth makes perfect sense when understood as the accumulation of centuries rather than a single lifetime. Compound interest over centuries would create staggering fortunes. Investments made in the 1700s or 1800s, allowed to grow for hundreds of years, would produce the kind of wealth Burns possesses. He's had time to acquire land when it was cheap, to invest in companies during their founding, to purchase assets that appreciate across generations. His fortune isn't the result of a single lifetime of business success. It's the inevitable result of centuries of accumulation. His business dealings throughout history would have positioned him to profit from every major economic shift. He could invest in railroads when they were new. He could buy oil rights before anyone knew oil's value. He could acquire property in cities before they became cities. With centuries to work with knowledge of how history unfolds, with ability to wait out temporary losses and profit from long-term gains, Burns could have accumulated essentially infinite wealth. His status as richest person in Springfield isn't impressive. It's inevitable. Anyone living for centuries would become obscenely wealthy simply through time and careful management. His antiquated values and knowledge make sense for someone from a different era. Burns references social structures that no longer exist. He discusses labor practices from centuries ago. He expects deference and hierarchy that modern America has largely abandoned. He's out of touch with current reality, not because he's old and senile, but because he's ancient and has stopped bothering to keep up. The world has changed so many times during his existence that he's given up adapting. He maintains the values and expectations of whenever he stopped caring about modernization, perhaps the late 1800s or early 1900s, and simply continues operating as if that era never ended. His disconnection from humanity. Perhaps the most telling evidence is Burns's complete lack of empathy, his inability to see humans as anything but resources to exploit. Burns displays absolute cruelty without remorse. He endangers workers without concern. He destroys lives without second thought. He views humans as disposable. No human warmth or genuine connection appears in his interactions. He's incapable of seeing other people as people. They're objects, tools, resources to be used and discarded. This level of inhuman detachment suggests someone who has lost connection to mortality, who no longer relates to humans as fellow beings, because he hasn't been human for so long, that he's forgotten what human connection feels like. Immortal beings in fiction typically lose their humanity over time. Living for centuries erodes empathy. Watching generations die teaches you that individual humans don't matter because they're all temporary. Burns has watched everyone he ever knew die. He's outlived friends, lovers, family. He's seen empires rise and fall. He's watched humanity repeat the same patterns across centuries. From his perspective, humans are mayflies, briefly fluttering and then gone. Why develop emotional connection to something that exists for an eye blink? Why value individual human life when you've seen billions of humans live and die? His cruelty isn't character flaw. It's the inevitable result of immortality wearing away his ability to see mortals as mattering, the hounds as guardians. Burns's vicious guard dogs take on supernatural significance when understood as more than ordinary attack animals. The "release the hounds" phrase has become iconic. These dogs serve as Burns's guardians, protecting his mansion from intruders. Throughout folklore, supernatural entities maintain guardian beasts, animals enhanced or corrupted to serve as protectors. Hellhounds appear in various mythologies as demonic guardian dogs. Burns's hounds might be supernatural themselves, animals he's corrupted or enhanced over his long existence to serve as protectors who never die, who remain loyal across decades, who protect his sanctuary with the same unnatural persistence that allows Burns himself to continue existing. Why the immortality continues. If Burns is truly immortal, the question becomes, what sustains him and what is his purpose in continuing? According to the theory, he feeds on Springfield's life force through the power plant, maintaining his existence by draining the community slowly. His greed serves as his eternal driving force. He's been accumulating wealth and power for so long that it's become his only purpose. He no longer remembers why he wanted these things. He continues because continuing is all he knows. Power accumulated across centuries becomes an end in itself. He builds empire because he's always built empire. He crushes opposition because that's what he's always done. His existence has lost meaning beyond mere continuation. The theory questions whether Burns wants to die, but cannot. Perhaps immortality is a curse rather than a blessing. Perhaps he's tried to end his existence and found he cannot. Perhaps he's trapped in eternal life, unable to escape, forced to continue accumulating and controlling, because he has nothing else. His cruelty might stem from centuries of wishing for death that never comes, taking out his frustration on the mortals around him who have the escape of death that he lacks. His mission, if he has one, is simply to continue, to survive another year, to maintain his power another decade, to keep existing when existence has long since lost meaning. The theory transforms Mr. Burns from a one-dimensional villain into a tragic immortal, a being who has lived so long that he's forgotten what it means to be human, who sustains his existence by draining life from others, who has accumulated so much power and wealth across centuries that he no longer remembers why he wanted them in the first place. He's trapped in eternal existence, forever feeding, forever accumulating, forever alone in his mansion, surrounded by centuries of stolen life. Every episode featuring Burns isn't about a greedy old man. It's about an ancient evil that has outlived its own purpose, continuing to exist because it cannot stop, draining Springfield because it must, maintaining its grip on power because power is all it has left after centuries have stripped away everything that once made existence worth maintaining. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Krusty the Clown, the tragic doppelganger theory. Krusty the Clown is Springfield's most famous entertainer, a beloved children's television host who maintains a cheerful public persona while living a life of addiction, crime, and misery. Throughout the series, one visual fact has been impossible to ignore. Krusty looks exactly like Homer Simpson. Identical features, identical build, identical everything except the costume. The show acknowledges this resemblance repeatedly, treating it as a running gag. But according to a compelling theory, this isn't coincidence or lazy animation. Krusty and Homer are connected in a fundamental way, either as doppelgangers reflecting alternate life paths, or as the same person split across different timelines, or as two outcomes of the same genetic origin showing how close comedy and tragedy truly are. Every episode featuring Krusty isn't just about a clown. It's about showing Homer what his life could have been, about demonstrating how similar origins lead to different destinations, about revealing that happiness and misery are separated by the thinnest of lines. The identical appearance. The theory begins with undeniable visual evidence. Homer and Krusty are physically identical when Krusty removes his makeup. Same body type, same facial structure, same proportions. Episodes where Krusty's makeup comes off reveal a face that could be Homer's. Times when Homer has dressed as Krusty show how easily one can impersonate the other. They're mistaken for each other with regularity. Characters confuse them. Both family members and strangers occasionally treat one as if he were the other. In a show famous for distinct character designs, where every character is immediately recognizable by silhouette alone, having two major characters look identical cannot be accident. Its message, its meaning, its evidence of connection the show keeps hinting at, but never fully explaining. The animation choice appears deliberate. The Simpsons creates unique designs for even minor characters. Everyone looks different. Everyone is immediately identifiable. Homer and Krusty being identical stands out as an anomaly. The show could have made Krusty look different. They could have given him distinct features. Instead, they made him Homer in clown makeup. This choice has persisted for over 30 years. It's not an early mistake that was corrected. It's a maintained element of both characters' designs. The show wants viewers to notice this resemblance. It wants the question asked, why do these two men look identical? Parallel life structures. Beyond physical appearance, Homer and Krusty live remarkably similar lives, following parallel paths that suggest they're two versions of the same story. Both are entertainers. Homer had a barbershop quartet. He performed music and achieved brief fame before returning to obscurity. Krusty performs daily on television, famous but hollow. Both struggled with their fathers. Krusty's relationship with Rabbi Krustovsky mirrors Homer's relationship with Abe Simpson. Both fathers were disappointed in their sons. Both fathers failed to support their sons' dreams. Both fathers created wounds that shaped their sons' entire lives. Both men struggle with addiction. Krusty's addictions are explicit and severe. Homer's alcoholism runs throughout the series. Both use substances to numb pain. Both escape into chemicals rather than facing their problems directly. Both have moments of fame and failure. Both are terrible at their jobs but somehow maintain employment. Krusty's show is often terrible. Homer's work at the nuclear plant is incompetent, yet both continue in their positions year after year, protected by forces that should have fired them long ago. Both are loved by children despite inadequacy. Bart worships Krusty. Bart and Lisa love Homer. In both cases, Children see something in these flawed men that others miss. These parallels aren't random. They're too numerous, too specific, too perfectly aligned. Homer and Krusty are living the same life in different contexts, one as anonymous father, the other as famous clown, both equally miserable, both equally loved by those who don't truly know them. The parallel structure suggests they're variations on a theme, two outcomes generated from the same initial conditions, proof that circumstances rather than character determine whether someone ends up famous or forgotten, celebrated or ignored. The alternate timeline theory. One interpretation proposes that Homer and Krusty are literally the same person from different timeline branches, showing how one choice created two different lives. The Simpsons has explored multiverse concepts in various episodes. The show acknowledges the possibility of alternate realities, where different versions of characters live different lives. Krusty and Homer might be the result of a single decision point where reality split. In one timeline, Herschel Krustofsky chose entertainment, chasing fame and fortune. In another timeline, Homer Simpson chose family, marrying Marge and settling in Springfield. Both timelines exist simultaneously. Both versions of the same person live out their choices, never knowing the other exists. This interpretation explains why they look identical. They're literally the same person. Their lives diverged at a specific moment, but their physical form remained the same across both timelines. It explains why their life structures parallel each other. They're the same person responding to similar challenges differently based on the different paths they chose. Krusty chose fame over connection. Homer chose connection over ambition. Both regret their choices. Krusty is famous, but alone. Homer has family, but feels trapped. Both wonder what life would be like if they'd chosen differently. The tragedy is that both are living the alternative the other envies, neither realizing the other path brings its own misery. The father connection. Perhaps the most significant parallel is how both Homer and Krusty have fathers who fundamentally reject who they've become. Rabbi Krustofsky rejected Krusty's choice to become a clown. He wanted his son to be a rabbi, to carry on tradition, to be respectable. Krusty chose comedy instead, and his father cut him off for years. This rejection shaped Krusty's entire existence. He built his career trying to prove himself worthy, trying to earn validation that never came. Even after reconciliation, the wound remained. Abe Simpson rejected Homer in different ways. He never showed pride in Homer. He criticized Homer's choices. He expressed disappointment constantly. Homer has spent his life trying to win his father's approval and failing repeatedly. Both men became who they are, trying to either please or defy their fathers. Both failed at both. Both carry wounds from men who couldn't love them properly. This shared trauma isn't coincidence. It's evidence of fundamental connection. The father-son relationship in both cases follows identical patterns: demanding fathers, disappointing sons, failed reconciliation attempts, wounds that never heal. The specificity of this parallel suggests Homer and Krusty are connected at a deep level, sharing not just appearance, but fundamental life experience, proving they're either the same person in different circumstances or two people living the same story in different contexts. Comedy and tragedy as twins. The theory extends beyond biographical parallels to philosophical truth. Krusty and Homer represent the ancient theatrical masks of comedy and tragedy, showing how close laughter and suffering truly are. Krusty performs comedy but lives tragedy. His professional life involves making people laugh. His personal life involves addiction, failed relationships, and spiritual emptiness. He brings joy to others while experiencing none himself. His clown makeup becomes a mask that hides misery behind forced cheer. He performs happiness while dying inside. Homer lives comedy for viewers, but experiences tragedy. His life is funny to those watching from outside. His failures are entertainment. His stupidity generates laughs. But from Homer's perspective, his life is disappointment and struggle. He's trying to be a good father and failing. He's trying to provide for his family and barely succeeding. He's trying to be happy and mostly being confused. His life is comedic tragedy, funny from the outside, but sad from the inside. The reversal between Krusty and Homer shows how thin the line between comedy and tragedy really is. One man performs comedy and lives tragedy. The other man lives comedy and experiences tragedy. They're both clowns in different ways, both performing for audiences that don't understand the pain beneath the performance. Their identical faces reveal truth. Comedy and tragedy are not opposites but twins, and the clown and the fool are the same person wearing different makeup. The classical theater masks show one face laughing, one crying. Homer and Krusty show that one person can be both simultaneously, that the face you show the world and the pain you feel inside exist in the same body, that making people laugh and falling apart inside aren't contradictory, but complementary, two aspects of the same human experience. Bart's worship of Krusty. Bart's relationship with both men reveals the theory's cruelest irony. He worships the distant celebrity version of his father while rejecting the actual father in front of him. Bart obsesses over Krusty. He watches every show. He buys every product. He defends Krusty from criticism. He models his behavior after Krusty's rebellious attitude. Simultaneously, Bart disrespects Homer. He mocks his father's intelligence. He disobeys his rules. He shows little appreciation for Homer's efforts. The theory proposes they're the same person. Bart loves one and rejects the other, not realizing he's loving and rejecting the same man in different roles. What Bart admires in Krusty exists in Homer. Homer is funny. Homer is kind beneath the stupidity. Homer loves Bart despite everything. But Bart can't see these qualities in his father because proximity breeds contempt. Krusty's distance makes him attractive. He's the fantasy father who is always funny and never disappointing because Bart doesn't have to live with him. Homer's presence makes him unattractive. He's the real father who is sometimes funny, but often annoying, never perfect because Bart sees him constantly. Bart doesn't know he's worshiping his father's doppelganger, loving in Krusty exactly what he refuses to see in Homer. The theory transforms this into cruel irony. The son rejects the father while idolizing the father's mirror image, never realizing they're the same. Why Krusty stays miserable. The theory uses Krusty's persistent misery, despite success, to show what Homer's life would have been if he'd chosen fame over family. Krusty has everything society says should bring happiness. He has fame, he has money, he has success, he's recognized everywhere. Children adore him, his name is known throughout Springfield. Yet he's miserable. He's addicted to multiple substances. He's been involved in criminal activity. He has no real relationships. He's alone. His success is hollow. His fame is burden rather than blessing. Homer has nothing materially. He works a dead-end job. He lives paycheck to paycheck. He's not famous. He's barely respected. But he has family. He has people who genuinely love him. Marge stays despite everything. His children need him, even when they don't appreciate him. He has connection, meaning, people whose lives would be worse without him. The theory proposes Krusty shows the road Homer avoided. If Homer had chosen fame, if he'd pursued entertainment, if he'd prioritized success over family, he would have ended up like Krusty, successful but empty, famous but alone, entertaining others while suffering himself. Every episode featuring Krusty's misery is a reminder that Homer, for all his failures, chose correctly. The doppelganger exists to show the road not taken, to demonstrate that the grass isn't greener, that the anonymous father has something the famous clown never will, people who genuinely love him. Krusty can buy loyalty, he can purchase companionship, he can hire staff, but he cannot have what Homer has, the family that stays even when there's no reason to stay, the love that persists even when he doesn't deserve it, the connection that makes life meaningful even when it's difficult. The theory's ultimate message. The doppelganger theory transforms Krusty from a side character into a mirror showing Homer and viewers profound truths about life, success, and happiness. Their identical faces force confrontation with uncomfortable questions. What is success actually worth? What matters more? Fame or connection, money or family? Being celebrated by strangers or being loved by those who know you completely? Both men are flawed. Both have failed at important things. Both have hurt people they love. Both have wasted potential. Neither is happy in any simple sense. But Homer has moments of genuine connection. He has times when his family needs him and he comes through. He has relationships that matter beyond what they can do for him. Krusty has none of this. His connections are all transactional. People relate to him because of what he represents, not who he is. His relationships serve purposes. They don't sustain him emotionally or spiritually. The theory suggests that in the choice between Krusty's life and Homer's life, Homer's is preferable despite appearing worse from outside. Success isn't what society says it is. Happiness isn't what we're told to pursue. The theory transforms Krusty the Clown from a simple side character into Homer Simpson's shadow self, a walking warning and a mirror reflecting different choices from similar origins. Their identical faces force us to see what we'd rather ignore, that we're all just choices away from completely different lives, that comedy and tragedy wear the same face, and that the person we admire and the person we dismiss might be far more similar than we'd ever want to admit. Every time Krusty appears on screen, the theory proposes we're seeing what Homer could have been, what he avoided becoming, proof that the right choice isn't always the obvious choice, and that sometimes the anonymous life lived with genuine connection matters more than the famous life lived in hollow isolation. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Springfield, the purgatory theory. Throughout this analysis, we've examined individual characters and their hidden natures. But what if the most important character in The Simpsons isn't a person at all? What if it's Springfield itself, the town that contains all these stories, the environment that shapes all these lives? According to one of the show's most comprehensive theories, Springfield isn't simply a setting. It's a deliberate construct, either a purgatory where souls work through their sins before moving on, or a massive social experiment where selected subjects live in a controlled environment while unknown forces observe and manipulate them. Every resident of Springfield is trapped there, unable to leave or truly change, cycling through the same patterns endlessly. Every episode set in Springfield isn't just entertainment. It's documentation of souls cycling through lessons, or specimens responding to stimuli, trapped in an environment designed to keep them contained while they serve whatever purpose this place was created for. The purgatory interpretation. The purgatory interpretation proposes that Springfield exists as a spiritual realm where flawed souls work through their imperfections before moving to final judgment. Catholic theology describes purgatory as a temporary state where souls too sinful for immediate heaven, but not damned enough for hell, undergo purification. Springfield matches this description perfectly. Every character has flaws that need correction. Homer embodies gluttony and sloth. Burns represents greed. Bart displays pride and disobedience. Krusty struggles with addiction. Each resident of Springfield could be understood as a soul working through specific sins. The eternal present makes sense in spiritual context. Purgatory exists outside normal time. It's a spiritual space where chronological time doesn't apply. Souls in purgatory don't age because they're already dead. They're spirits rather than physical beings. Springfield's floating timeline, where decades pass but nobody ages, fits this interpretation. The residents aren't living normal lives. Their souls experiencing a spiritual process that has nothing to do with physical time. 35 years of the show equals one moment in purgatory. Episodes repeat similar lessons because souls in purgatory must learn the same lessons repeatedly until they actually internalize them. Springfield sits between extremes, fitting purgatory's transitional nature. The town isn't paradise. It's flawed, troubled, full of sin and suffering. But it's not hell either. People experience joy, families love each other, good things happen occasionally. It's the middle ground, the in-between space, exactly what purgatory represents. The theory proposes Springfield literally exists between heaven and hell, geographically or dimensionally. Heaven lies above, hell lies below, referenced in episodes where hell's existence is acknowledged. Springfield occupies the middle space where souls work toward elevation or fall toward damnation. The experiment interpretation. The experiment theory proposes something more disturbing. Springfield is a massive controlled study, with residents as unwitting subjects monitored by unknown experimenters. The most explicit evidence comes from the Simpsons movie, where Springfield is placed under a dome by the EPA. This dome reveals what the theory suggests has always been there. Springfield has always been contained. The movie just made the containment visible. The residents couldn't escape, because Springfield is designed as a containment facility. The dome wasn't imprisonment, it was revelation of the true nature of their reality. The town's isolation supports experimental reading. Springfield sits apart from other locations. Characters rarely leave. When they do, they return quickly or face obstacles that force them back. The town functions as a closed system, essential for controlled experiments. Scientists need to control variables. To study a population properly, you must prevent outside influence from contaminating results. Springfield's isolation isn't geographic accident, it's experimental necessity. The subjects must remain contained to ensure the experiment's validity. Residents display behaviors that resemble experiment responses. Situations repeat like test protocols. Variables change to observe how subjects react differently. Homer faces similar challenges repeatedly, allowing researchers to observe how he responds to the same stimulus multiple times. Each episode could be a new experimental trial. Each situation introduces specific variables designed to test specific hypotheses about human behavior. The repetitive nature of the show isn't creative failure, it's experimental methodology. Scientists repeat tests to verify results. Springfield's residents repeat experiences because they're being tested systematically across multiple trials. Why nobody can leave. Both interpretations gain support from a consistent pattern. Springfield residents who try to leave inevitably return or fail. Throughout the series, characters attempt to escape Springfield. They get jobs elsewhere, they move to new cities, they try to start over somewhere else. Without exception, they end up back in Springfield. The reasons vary. Sometimes they're pulled back by obligation. Sometimes circumstances force return. Sometimes they simply cannot find success anywhere else. The pattern is clear and consistent. Springfield doesn't let people go. In purgatory interpretation, this makes spiritual sense. Souls cannot leave purgatory until they've completed their purification. Attempting to escape demonstrates that the soul hasn't learned its lessons yet. Springfield residents who try to leave haven't worked through their sins. They're not ready to move on. The universe pulls them back because their spiritual work remains incomplete. They must stay in purgatory until they've achieved the growth necessary for transcendence. In experiment interpretation, this makes practical sense. Experimental subjects cannot be allowed to leave the controlled environment. Their departure would contaminate the study. Researchers would lose valuable data. Anyone attempting escape must be returned to ensure the experiment continues uninterrupted. The few characters who do successfully leave Springfield effectively disappear from the show. The theory proposes they've been removed from the experiment, either as failures or successes, extracted from the subject pool once they're no longer useful for study purposes. The eternal present explained. The show's eternal present, where decades pass but nobody ages, makes perfect sense through either interpretation. Purgatory exists outside time. Spiritual realms don't follow chronological progression. A day in purgatory might equal a century in mortal time, or vice versa. Time becomes meaningless when applied to spiritual processes. Springfield residents don't age because they're not in normal time. They're in spiritual time, where the lesson matters more than duration, where experiences repeat until internalized, regardless of how long that takes, measured by external standards. Experiments require controlled variables. Scientific studies must keep certain factors constant to isolate what they're testing. Age is a variable that researchers might want controlled. To properly study human behavior patterns, subjects need to remain at consistent developmental stages. Springfield residents don't age because the experiment requires them to remain constant. Time passing externally doesn't affect them because they exist inside an experimental bubble where time is controlled, where aging is suspended, where variables are carefully maintained at specific values to ensure clean data collection. The town's impossible geography. Springfield's geography is famously inconsistent, changing based on episode needs, suggesting it's not a real place bound by physical laws. Locations appear and disappear. The same journey takes different amounts of time. The layout contradicts itself between episodes. Attempts to map Springfield consistently fail because the town's geography doesn't remain stable. Real places don't work this way. Real towns have fixed layouts. Buildings don't appear and vanish. Geography doesn't rearrange itself. This impossibility supports both theories. Purgatory doesn't follow physical laws. Spiritual realms are shaped by meaning rather than physics. Springfield's geography shifts because it's responding to spiritual needs or narrative purposes rather than physical constraints. The town arranges itself according to what lessons need teaching, what experiences need facilitation, what spiritual work needs doing. Experimental environments are redesigned as needed to test different variables. Researchers modify the testing arena to observe how subjects respond to different configurations. Springfield changes because experimenters are adjusting the environment, testing how residents respond to geographic variations, gathering data on how spatial arrangements affect behavior and social dynamics. The media as documentation. The most disturbing implication is that the Simpsons we watch might be the literal documentation of Springfield's true nature. If Springfield is purgatory, the show could be a record of souls' spiritual journeys, broadcast for educational or cautionary purposes. Other souls might watch Springfield residents work through their sins to learn lessons vicariously. The show's longevity allows comprehensive documentation of spiritual growth over extended periods. Every episode becomes a teaching tool, demonstration of how souls struggle with sin, how they fail and try again, how purification works. If Springfield is an experiment, the show becomes data dissemination. Researchers might broadcast their findings to other researchers or funders. They might share results with public to justify the experiment's existence or secure continued funding. Every episode documents specific behaviors, social dynamics, or responses to manufactured situations. The show's structure as entertainment provides cover for what's actually scientific documentation of human subjects under controlled conditions. We aren't just watching a cartoon. According to the theory, we're watching documentation of something real, either spiritual processing or scientific observation, broadcast for purposes we don't fully understand. Every episode is data. Every character is subject. Every laugh is our response to others' containment and suffering. We're implicated as viewers, as participants in whatever Springfield actually is, whether witnesses to spiritual trials or consumers of experimental results. Why this theory encompasses everything. The Springfield theory is the ultimate meta-theory, explaining why all the individual character theories can coexist. Homer's coma happens within larger containment. He's trapped in his fantasy while simultaneously trapped in Springfield's larger trap. Marge's prison sits inside Springfield's prison. She's constructed fantasy within Springfield's constructed reality. Every individual character theory nests within the location theory. Each personal hell exists within Springfield's collective hell. Burns's immortality, Maggie's intelligence, Ned's demonic nature, all exist within the framework of Springfield as purgatory or experiment. The comprehensive nature of containment means everyone is trapped on multiple levels. They're trapped by their personal circumstances. They're trapped by their character flaws. They're trapped by their relationships. And they're all trapped by Springfield itself. The town is the ultimate trap, the containment that contains all other containments. Whether spiritual or scientific, Springfield's purpose is keeping people there, cycling them through experiences, preventing escape, maintaining control over their existence for reasons they'll never fully understand. What we do know, whether Springfield is purgatory, experiment, or simply a town in a cartoon, what we do know is that it functions as a trap. Nobody truly leaves. Nobody truly changes. Lessons repeat without being learned. The same situations recur endlessly. Time doesn't move forward. Growth doesn't happen. Springfield maintains itself in perfect stasis, an eternal present where nothing fundamental ever changes because change would defeat the purpose of the containment. Residents cycle through experiences without progressing, trapped in patterns they cannot break, living in a town they cannot escape. The theory transforms Springfield from a simple setting into the show's true protagonist, the environment that shapes everything, the trap that contains everyone, the perfect representation of how we're all trapped in systems beyond our control, cycling through the same patterns, unable to truly change or escape, living in an eternal present where the same lessons repeat forever because learning them isn't the point. The cycling itself is the point. Whether spiritual purification that never completes or scientific observation that never concludes, Springfield exists to maintain its residents in permanent limbo, neither damned nor saved, neither free nor destroyed, forever trapped in the middle ground where they serve purposes they cannot perceive. For architects they'll never meet, playing out their lives for audiences they'll never know exist, prisoners of a town that looks like home but functions as cage. Beautiful in its own way, but ultimately inescapable. The paradise that's secretly prison. The hell that pretends to be ordinary life. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.